Chapter 2312. Could it be? No wonder. Gushi exerted force, and crushed the red arrow in his hand. Gushi couldn't help but mutter, as he looked at the red powder in his hand. Just the feeling when he just destroyed the red arrow, Gushi knew that the red arrow came from the positioning effect of a red suit. No wonder those people could directly lock Gushi's position. Even if they moved, they were always moving in a straight line. It was clear that they had already set their sights on the head of the ancient god that Gushi had just captured. Although I don't know how they found the head of the ancient god. But this thing is Gushi's treasure. For the head of the ancient god, Gushi even sacrificed his mirror underground palace. He will never let the head of the ancient god fall into the hands of others. It's okay that he didn't find this before. Gushi can only defeat the enemies who come over. But it's different now. Now Gushi has only one idea. Destroy the clan. Even if it may not be possible, Gushi will do it. Gushi doesn't want a race to exist that is eyeing the head of the ancient god. Anyway, the enemy is deep in the game. Although there is red equipment, there should be only one. As long as we know who the other party is, just kill them all. Gushi clapped his hands hard and scattered all the red powder in his hands. Then he raised his hands again, and the petals of the nether spirit flower quickly floated out and wrapped the location of the ancient god's head. The nether spirit flower bloomed, and the effects of yin and yang conversion plus fate selection were fully activated. Although these methods cannot completely seal the ancient god's head, they can guarantee one thing. Even if a red suit wants to touch the head of the ancient god, it will be affected by the ghost flower. Gushi will feel it at the first time. There will be no more situations like the one in front of him. After doing all this, Gushi took a serious look at the situation nearby and quickly stepped out of Taosan space. At this time, about 4,000 kilometers away from Gushi's territory, the Murta people have formed a large army. In addition to the players recorded in Shea's intelligence, there are also some non-player troops mixed in this army. These non-player troops are mainly stone men, metal golems, mechanical creatures, supplemented by mud men or stone monsters. As they move forward, almost every time they walk a certain distance, some mud men or stone monsters will crawl out from the ground and join the team. These mud men and stone monsters look confused, but once they enter the range of the troops, they will quickly understand where they should be and quickly follow the large troops. For their joining, the players of the Murta tribe are calm. They have long been accustomed to such changes. These stone men, metal golems, clay men, stone monsters and the like are their tools. The players of the Murta tribe apparently make a living by capturing the game world, but they do not encounter the game world every day. When they do not encounter the game world, they mainly make a living by mining. Stone men, metal golems, and the like are the protection forces they usually bring with them, while clay men, stone monsters, and the like are the laborers responsible for mining and transportation under their command. When needed, they can quickly summon a large number of clay men and stone monsters. Of course, these clay men and stone monsters have advantages and disadvantages, mainly depending on how they are used. This time, the Murta people call these subordinates out to strengthen their momentum. The real main combat power is still the Murta players, and the stone men, metal golems, and other troops. In the eyes of the Murta players, they are actually going on a hike this time. Once they put out so many troops, most of the enemies will be scared. Then, they can easily get what they want. After returning this time, they will definitely get the above rewards again. But just as they were happily moving forward, the leader suddenly stopped and looked towards the direction of Huangquan Road with a puzzled look. When the leader of the Modar stopped, the entire Modar army also stopped at the same time. Most of the players looked at this person, and they didn't know what was going on. Or one of the Modar players stepped forward and asked a question. Captain of the guard, what happened? Why did we stop? Our actions were discovered by the enemy. The leading Modar said seriously. I thought it was something else. Let's just ignore it. We have come here, and they just discovered it. It seems that the person over there is not a big deal. When the Modar heard it, it turned out to be this reason. They thought something big had happened. All the Modar laughed indifferently. Only the leader had a serious look on his face. What do you know? It would be fine if we were just discovered. We have encountered this before. But this time, they erased the coordinates we sent over. Although the earth totem in our hands is a patchwork of old red equipment, and some parts are not as useful as orange equipment, but red equipment is still red equipment, and the positioning coordinates we released can be discovered. It can also be blocked, but it is absolutely impossible to be erased. Now the coordinates we sent out have been erased. What does this mean? Do you understand? The other party has a complete red suit? At this time, a player of the Murta tribe said weakly. It seems that you also see it clearly. Yes, the other party has a red suit. We have to think about how to deal with this matter next. Everyone knows that the Earth Totem is patched together. It was originally two completely damaged red suits, which were finally combined together. There is no problem with hitting the orange equipment. There is no problem with spatial positioning, opening the door and dragging people. There is no problem with directly connecting the depths of the game with the real world. But fighting with the real red equipment, the Earth Totem can't stand it at all. So what should we choose now? Fighting with the red equipment is definitely not feasible. But if we retreat like this, we can't go back and explain. Hearing this, all the Muda people were silent. They all felt that this was an armed spring outing, but they were almost there, and they said this. How could they respond to this? It was impossible to fight. The Muda people had red suits in their hands, and they all knew how powerful the red suits were. At the same time, they also understood what kind of rags they were relying on now. If they fought head-on, they would be sending themselves to death. But retreat now? Look up and see the number of Muda people nearby. They borrowed the power of the Earth Totem and transferred a large number of people from the real world. If they retreated now, no one would be in a good situation. For a moment, the Muda people didn't know what to do. Chapter 23:13. When the Muda people stopped, Gushi did not stop. After determining the enemy's target, in Gushi's mind, these enemies were already dead. Where they were going and whether they had the idea of stopping were not important to Gushi. What was important was where they were, and how to kill them all. Gushi did not need to wait for his troops to arrive. He went straight out of the range of Huangquan Road and released a batch of mud trucks on the spot. This is exactly how Gushi told Princess Anna that he had left the Yellow Spring Road. The city gate cannot be deployed on the Yellow Spring Road, but it can be deployed in the wilderness. The troops do not need to go through the fast passage on the Yellow Spring Road. They can mobilize the troops and arrange people to wait at the city gate. After Gushi deploys the city gate, the troops can be sent out. Although Gushi did not send the letter in, he believed that Princess Anna would understand the meaning of his actions. After leaving Huangquan Road, Gushi released the evil coffin, increased the speed to the maximum, and headed directly to the location of the Muda people. Of course, every time Gushi drove about 500 kilometers, he would put down a city gate to serve as a connection in the middle. When he drove about 2,100 kilometers, Gushi met a scout team sent by Shaya. They brought Gushi the latest news. What did you say? The enemy suddenly stopped. Yes, sir, we have been observing the enemy's situation. Not long ago, they suddenly stopped, as if they were discussing the next plan. These undead quickly reported what they saw to Gushi. Gushi listened carefully, calculated the time again, and found that the time when the enemy stopped was exactly the time when he destroyed the red arrow. It seems that the enemy already knows our strength. Gushi quickly made a judgment in his mind. It seems that they are discussing how to deal with us. Gushi was not so anxious at this time. He thought about it, and the garrison gate was opened. Guizhang's scout camp rushed out of the garrison gate and headed forward, while Gushi kept the scouts, who had just come, and drew a map on the spot. What is the current location of the enemy? Where did you come from? Is there any different environment nearby? In response to Gushi's question, the scouts quickly spoke. Gushi casually drew a map on the ground. At the same time, he was thinking about what the enemy would do next. They probably wouldn't retreat. If they wanted to retreat, they would have left long before they found out that they had dealt with the red arrow. So they still had a glimmer of hope in their hearts. But how they would send out troops and fight, Gushi didn't know much about the enemy at the moment, and he didn't have any judgment in his mind. At this time, Gushi would only figure out the terrain nearby first, and then see if he could make some arrangements using the terrain nearby. As for what to deploy, there are many things that can be deployed, such as Huangquan Road and Wanchuan River. Don't think that Huangquan Road has fallen into the depths of the game, and Gushi has no way to mobilize the power of Huangquan Road. As long as it is out of the range of Huangquan Road, Gushi can mobilize it as he wants. Luring the enemy to Huangquan Road and trapping them with Wanchuan River is the simplest way that Gushi can think of. However, how to lead, how to surround the enemy, and how to kill the enemy all depend on the enemy's location and terrain. Gushi was drawing a map at the moment, just to find a suitable place to see if he could lure the enemy in for an ambush, or to see where it would be more suitable to use water attack and fire strategy. The scouts under Shaya didn't know this, they just honestly explained the situation to Gushi. Soon Gushi drew all the nearby maps. He pointed to the location of a high mountain and asked the scout, "Where is this place?" "Sir, there is no name here, but there is obviously a relatively high mountain here. The mountain is quite unique, like a relic of a certain period." Gushi asked, and a scout answered quickly. "How high is the mountain? Are there any traces of water impact?" "Apart from this mountain, Are there any rivers nearby? Gushi asked quickly. The scout compared his memory, and answered one by one. After asking, Gushi found that this place looked more and more like the place he wanted. Gushi couldn't sit still at this time. Go over and take a look first, you wait here, and when the troops behind arrive, you will be responsible for leading the way for the follow-up troops. After saying that, Gushi jumped onto the evil coffin, glanced at the map, and headed towards the mountain he had just discovered. At the same time, the Guizhong scout camp said by Gushi had also approached the location where the Modar people stopped. The Guizhongs and the Guizhong scout camp were all flying in the sky. The flying dragons they rode, after many transformations and enhancements, were flying higher and higher. Coupled with the flying speed of the flying dragons, the Modar people below did not notice that someone was staring at them in the sky. At this time, they were still discussing the next action. At this time, they only had one opinion, that is, they could not retreat. Even if they died, they could not retreat. These Muda people had only one idea in their minds: they must grab something, even if it was just a little bit. No matter who it was, no matter how they got it back, as long as they could bring something back, they would have face. In the eyes of the Muda people, this should not be difficult. They, the Muda people, actually have some face among all the player races. After all the player races need the game world, need to help capture the game world, or even snatch the black gloves of the game world. In the absence of fundamental conflicts, other player races and the Modar people will always maintain a good balance and tacit understanding. The Modar people in front of them are betting on this tacit understanding. As long as they get something, and can use it to report back, there will be no problem. What they are discussing now is how to show their military strength, and how to send people to discuss with Gushi. Their goal this time was not big, as long as they could get back 2 or 3 game worlds. And they would not let Gushi help them in vain. Didn't Gushi discover the original vein of the game world? This is what the Modar people are playing. As long as Gushi is willing, they can help develop the original vein of the game world and ensure a win-win situation for everyone. But they never thought that Gushi did not intend to let them go back alive. Guizhong scout camp in the sky was staring at them, counting the number of Modar people and their troops. Chapter 23:14. Gushi, who had determined the target, really exerted the highest speed of the evil coffin. It took less than 15 minutes for Gushi to arrive near the mountain mentioned by the scout. After letting the evil coffin circle around the mountain, Gushi had already formed a corresponding idea in his mind. When the evil coffin returned to the starting position, Gushi immediately released several city gates, mainly steel city gates. In addition to the city gate of Aridavi City, there was also a city gate in Black Pole City, Poison Peach Mountain, and activated Giant Rock City. As the owners of these city gates were released, the aura nearby became obviously wrong. The situation in the Aridavi City and the Black Pole City was better. At most they attracted the Yin Qi, while the Poison Peach Mountain attracted the poison gas directly. As for the situation in the activated Giant Rock City, it was even more special. Not only did it not emit the Yin Qi, but it was absorbing the Yin Qi and poison gas from the outside. From this, we can see how special the undead in the activated Giant Rock City are. After opening the city gate, Gushi commanded the undead troops to go out and arrange them to the designated positions, while also deploying multiple summoning towers. Compared to the city gates, there are more soul summoning towers in front of us. In addition to the special soul summoning towers in Aridaz City, Black Pole City, Poison Peach Mountain, and activated Giant Rock City, Shuncheng and Lucheng also have soul summoning towers deployed. There is even a soul summoning tower from the Magic Mirror Victoria. After these soul summoning towers are deployed, no matter who sees them at first glance, they can see the difference in the soul summoning towers. These soul summoning towers are the key to Gushi's plan this time. After releasing the soul summoning towers, Gushi also specially moved the location of the soul summoning towers, placed them at the foot of the mountain, and arranged them in a certain way. This time, Gushi did not use the summoning tower to summon souls. Gushi intended to use the amplification effect of the summoning tower to let the Lich and the Death Incarnation troops join forces to guide some of his next arrangements. After all, this time Gushi had to face red equipment. Although he didn't know what level it was, Gushi, who knew that red equipment was powerful, always had to be careful before starting. It would not be wrong to deal with the things you want to arrange first. After putting down the summoning tower, Gushi decisively used the 2 skills of the Death Legion and the Death Witch Legion, releasing a large number of Death Incarnation Titans and Death Incarnation Jellyfish, and also released a large number of Liches. After releasing enough men, Gushi started the next action. Gushi first asked his Lich to set up the road to the soul. The route of the road to the soul is from the soul calling tower to the city gate, and then from the city gate back to the soul calling tower. While they were setting up these, Gushi took 2 death incarnations to set up the Forgotten River. The reason why these 2 death incarnations were used was because they were the most useful in the current situation. Death incarnation titans can move the earth. Whether it is digging a reservoir or laying out a river, they are the best candidates. Death incarnation jellyfish are Gushi's new death incarnations. Their role is quite special. In addition to their toxicity beyond normal levels, they also have strong hiding abilities. Gushi released them to cover up the arrangements in front of him. In Gushi's eyes, if he can send out scouts to investigate the enemy, then the enemy can definitely send people to investigate. Many of Gushi's arrangements this time focus on a surprise attack. If the enemy discovers his arrangements, it will become impossible to achieve the best situation. So before taking action, Gushi must hide himself. In this case, the Death Incarnation jellyfish, which originally only releases poison, can play a big role. Just like now, they fly directly into the air, keep expanding their bodies, and use themselves to block all eyes in the sky. With the obstruction of the Death Incarnation jellyfish, Gushi began to make his own arrangements. Gushi personally released the Forgotten River. This is the first time that Gushi has used the Forgotten River with all his strength after mastering this skill. Gushi drew a line on the top of the mountain, and a gray river flowed out from the void. The gray river water was mixed with countless faint blue lights. When the river water poured out, you could hear bursts of screams coming from the faint blue light. This was the Wanchuan River that Gushi released. Because Gushi had not yet built his own Wanchuan River on the Yellow Spring Road, all the Wanchuan rivers he cut out now were like the ghost gates at the beginning, all pulled out from other people's underworlds. So Gushi didn't know what effect the Wanchuan River would have. However, judging from the current situation, the effect of the Wanchuan River this time seemed to be quite good. Compared with those ordinary Huanquan, sticks and the like, this gray river water seemed to have many more souls in it. I don't know if it is the characteristics of this Wanchuan River, or if there are other reasons. Anyway, the Wanchuan River in front of him has exceeded Gushi's expectations. This situation makes Gushi quite happy. Gushi released several new rivers of forgetfulness, and then asked the Titans, the incarnation of death, to divert all the water of the Forgetfulness River to the reservoir that had just been set up on the top of the mountain. After that, a group of Titans, the incarnation of death, quickly moved out, and with the cooperation of the liches, they dug a river channel and prepared to divert the river channel to the direction of the enemy. At the same time, the undead under Gushi were also throwing various materials and props into the river channel. They were planning to increase the strength of the water of the Forgetfulness River. As for whether the river water would bring a strong impact, Gushi was not worried at all. With the help of Titan, the incarnation of death, Gushi's reservoir was almost digging the top of the mountain. The water from the Wanchuan River kept pouring into it. Just now, there were countless tons of river water on the top of the mountain. As long as Gushi opened a hole on this side of the mountain, the impact brought by the river water could directly break the mountain. It's funny to worry that the river water has no impact. When Gushi was making the arrangements, he was actually worried about whether his men would block the route of the river water, and whether they would be washed away by the river water. While Gushi was making the arrangements, Guizheng and his scouts had already figured out the enemy's situation. They came back to report to Gushi as soon as possible. Of course, the focus of their report was naturally the location of the enemy, the number of enemies and their strength. At the same time, there was also the strange transport vehicle that Gushi asked them to observe. Listening to the scouts' reports, Gushi thought about it seriously. No, you are still not very clear. I want to go and see it myself. Chapter 23:15. 50,000 meters high. This is the first time that Gushi has used the power of the Sky King to fly to such a position, since he mastered the Sky King skill. Although he was protected by the Sky King effect, the strong wind pressure still made Gushi feel uncomfortable standing in such a position. However, Gushi did not pay attention to those things at this time. At this time, his eyes were fixed on the things on the transport vehicle. With Gushi's eyes, he could see that this pillar-like thing might really be a red dress. But this red dress has some problems. Apart from other things, Gushi felt that the red dress in front of him was made of 3 different things. The wood that served as the main body of the pillar was obviously originally a red dress, but it had cracked. There was also a skull-like thing hidden in the wood, and the style of that thing was completely different from that of the wood. This was also a red dress. In addition, the iron hoop used to hold the wood was obviously incompatible with the wood in terms of function and style. So Gushi was really confused. Is this 1 red suit or 3 red suits in front of him? The only thing Gushi could be sure of at this moment was that there should be no other red suits among the enemies below. In other words, as long as the things on the transport vehicle were destroyed, or the enemies were separated from the transport vehicle, they would not have the opportunity to touch and use the red suits. At that time, as long as all the enemies here were killed, even if there were red suits, it would not matter. Gushi in the sky nodded with satisfaction at this time. He felt that he had done the right thing by preparing for the battle in advance and arranging everything before coming here. After determining the means of attack, Gushi observed the enemy's position again. They stopped immediately after they felt that Gushi had erased the location of the red arrow. So they did not pay attention to the situation around them. If the Muda people paid attention at this time, they would find that their current location was a small, half-concave basin. However, they did not pay much attention to it at the time, and they usually never had the habit of taking a detour no matter where they met mountains or rivers. In their eyes, the small basin was not that important. Staying in the basin is just staying there. In their minds, the enemy would never release water to drown them in the basin. So this gave Gushi a good opportunity. Gushi in the sky observed the situation around him, and then turned around, and the strong wind of the Sky King pushed Gushi out. When Gushi left, the captain of the Muda guards below also had a hint of doubt in his eyes. He stopped the topic he was discussing, walked to the side of the transport vehicle, and turned the pillar on the transport vehicle with force, as if he was adjusting something there. The captain's action immediately attracted the attention of other Muda people. They quickly surrounded him, and one of them asked directly, "Captain, what are you doing?" "I always have a bad feeling," the captain said while adjusting the pillar. "Although I don't know what went wrong, I always feel that someone is plotting against us." "No, Captain, you don't have to be so sensitive. In a place like this, how can anyone do anything to us? Who knows? When we came here before, didn't we say that the other side had nothing? As a result, we found that they had red suits before we even reached their territory. I don't want to fight with the red suit boss at the last minute. If it's just a combat type red suit, it's fine. If we encounter a battle type red suit, none of us will be able to leave alive." After saying this, the captain of the guard went back to the task at hand. Under his adjustment, the pillars on the transport vehicle in front of him obviously changed. The skull that Gushi had discovered before, which was stuck inside the wood of the pillar, was removed. Like the wood and iron hoop before, this skull was also obviously damaged. A large piece of the top of the skull was obviously missing, allowing people to see a large number of gems inside the skull. These gems have different colors and sizes, but they have a different effect in front of them. That is, no matter how the skull is turned, these gems will not fall out. Now that the skull was removed, it was placed on top of the pillar. At the same time, the captain took out some things and hung them on the skull. As the captain hung these things, the gems inside the skull flew out and turned into layers of light curtains, covering all the Murda people. At this time, watching the captain's actions, the other Murda people were all stunned. At first, they just thought that the captain had discovered something different. But they really didn't expect that the captain of the guard would do such a thing. Their red suit, called Earth Totem, was explained at the beginning as a patchwork of red suits. It was the result of combining 2 or 3 red suits together. The iron hoop on the outside of the pillar was one of them, and its main function was to fix the other red suits. Without this iron hoop, the other pieces of red suits would be completely waste. Of course, it is precisely because of this that the iron hoop must always play a role. Therefore, the characteristics of the red suit are directly occupied, which makes this Earth Totem have one less special skill than other red suits. In addition, the effects of the remaining red suits are not all available. Normally, the Earth Totem can only use the characteristics of one red suit, and the remaining red suits can only serve as energy temporarily. It's like the main body of the Earth Totem was the wood that served as the pillar. This has a means of directly breaking the transmission between the real world and the depths of the game, and also has the positioning of the arrows thrown directly into the space of Gushi Taosan. It is different now. The captain of the guard feels uneasy. The skull he takes out now is of another style. The flying gems can protect them from most attacks, whether physical or magical, and can block 80% of the damage. It can be said that this skull is a strong defensive red outfit, which has a completely different effect from the previous wooden pillar. Now it becomes the wooden pillar that provides energy for the skull, allowing the skull to play its full role. The players of the Murda people are very clear about the red outfit they are carrying. So when they see the captain of the guard doing this, they will have such an excited reaction. You know, when they first found that something was wrong, he didn't think of switching the skull to protect himself. Chapter 23:16. When the Madars launched a full-scale defense, Gushi had already returned to the hilltop where the reservoir was set up before. Gushi was not idle at all during this journey. When flying towards the Madars, Gushi observed the terrain on the way. There are actually many places along the way that need to be adjusted. For example, some forks need to be filled, some places are too high and need to be leveled, and some places need to directly open a river channel. On the way back, Gushi could be said to have used the Death Legion constantly, releasing the Death Incarnation Titan and the Death Incarnation Jellyfish, and letting them deal with the nearby land. Sometimes Gushi would also arrange some forgotten rivers, and build dams here, and reservoirs to store water to supply the water later. Gushi just flew and released them all the way. When he returned to the reservoir, most of the locations on the road had been arranged. Gushi could guarantee that as long as the forgotten river water in the reservoir was released, the unknown tons of river water would rush down along the road planned by Gushi with a strong impact. However, the water volume of the river in front of him seemed to be a little less. He had built many reservoirs and dams along the way, so he didn't care about having 2 more here. Gushi's mind moved, and he released 2 more Wanchuan rivers. The water of these 2 Wanchuan rivers did not flow into the reservoir, but into the river channel under the mountain. With the addition of these 2 Wanchuan rivers, Gushi was finally satisfied. At this time, he directly called his men. Most of the heroes here are ready for battle. Some heroes or leaders even stood on the mud trucks with their troops. As long as Gushi gave the order, they would immediately move forward. I went to see the situation of those people before. The enemy's position is quite good. When I open the gates to release water, you will follow behind the water flow. Don't go fast, just keep up. Remember to wait until the flood starts before setting off. Don't run around. I arranged you here instead of sending you directly to the scene, just to catch them off guard. Gushi's thinking was quite clear. If the enemy didn't have red suits, he would have immediately deployed the city gate at the location where the enemy stopped. Then the soldiers could rush out and kill all the enemies. Now the enemy has red suits, and Gushi doesn't know the effect yet. Then he can't play it this way. After all, facing red suits, it's never too careful. Gushi didn't want to deploy his troops, and then turn around, and the red suits showed their power and killed all his troops. Should he send people to fight the enemy, or send people to die? So this idea is the best plan for Gushi at the moment. Use floods to attack the enemy. Then the army will press forward. Taking advantage of the enemy's confusion, Gushi will deal with the enemy's red suit. It is not necessary to take down the red suit or kill the user of the red suit, as long as you can delay the enemy. Take over Gushi's troops, and kill the enemy at this opportunity. Isn't this done? Of course, this is the smoothest idea. If things don't go well, Gushi can only lead the enemy's red dress users to other places, and arrange for other people to deal with these enemies. At that time, the surprise attack may become a protracted war, and the situation will be bad. The reason why Gushi took the initiative to attack was, on the one hand, to stop the enemy outside his territory, and on the other hand, he didn't want people to discover the location of his territory. If some things can be delayed for 1 more day, Gushi will have more things to prepare. The leaders, heroes, and chieftains under Gushi were all very clear about the situation. As soon as they heard Gushi's order, they responded decisively and promised to handle it according to Gushi's plan. Gushi was relieved at this time. When his men were almost ready, Gushi jumped onto the evil coffin. Then Gushi slashed his hand down heavily, and the rocks on one side of the mountain suddenly collapsed, and a large amount of water from the Wanchuan River rushed down directly from the nearly 1,000-meter high mountain. The river water carried a lot of mud and stones, with a strong impact, rushing down like an avalanche. The flood immediately crashed into the river channel arranged by Gushi below. There was already a considerable amount of river water in the river channel at this time, and under the impact of this wave of flood, it was also pushed forward. In the blink of an eye, a huge wave and flood peak of 30 meters high was formed. Seeing this situation, Gushi immediately became alert. This was the first time he used such a method. Although his method at this time was quite magical, the route he finally took was definitely an attack method like natural disaster. Gushi did not have so many ideas about this action at the beginning. Gushi actually had only one idea, which was to find a way to kill the enemy. His thinking was simple and clear. After doing it, Gushi had no way to control the final direction. What he could do now was to follow the flood and guide the impact direction of the flood to prevent them from dispersing the power. When Gushi's men saw this situation, they also took action at the same time. The dump trucks followed the 2 sides of the flood river and rushed out. Behind them were the undead troops without dump trucks. Their movement speed was actually not slower than that of the dump trucks. However, the fastest among them was Gushi. Once the evil coffin was opened, the movement speed was directly increased. At the same time, Gushi was also busy all the way. Every time the evil coffin rushed through a node, Gushi would blow up the reservoir and dam, allowing the Death Incarnation Titan and Death Incarnation Jellyfish that had originally stayed here to enter the flood. After they entered the flood, the Death Incarnation Titan could still affect the speed of the flood, and the Death Incarnation Jellyfish added some toxicity to the flood. In the end, because of their appearance, what Gushi was worried about did not happen. The speed of the flood was getting faster and faster, and the amount of water brought by the flood was getting larger and larger. In less than 30 minutes, the flood had rushed to the vicinity of the basin where the Murda people were. At this time, the Murda people also felt that the situation was not right. There was a strange vibration sound from the ground, and the wind blowing on their faces was obviously wrong. The captain of the guard changed his face. The situation is not right. Everyone retreat behind the earth totem, don't run around, and believe in the power of the earth totem. Before he finished speaking, his eyes went dark, and he saw a huge wave that had risen to the highest point and was pressing towards their heads. Chapter 23:17. What's going on? The captain of the guard of the Murda people was also confused. Could it be that the enemy's red suit was releasing a flood? If that was the case, it would be easier to deal with. But the flood in front of us didn't look right. The most terrible thing was not this. But the most terrible thing was that their initial approach was to deal with magic attacks and physical attacks. They really couldn't deal with this kind of flood. Looking at the flood coming down on his head, the captain of the guard roared. What are you still standing there for? Get out of here! While yelling, the captain of the guard put his hands on the transport vehicle in front of him. It was definitely too late to adjust the properties of the red suit at this time. So the captain of the guard did not change the earth totem back to the original effect that could directly teleport people's hands, but activated another effect in the direction of the skull. Heavy armor enhancement. The Murda people usually search for minerals in the wild every day, and they always encounter various situations underground. So they always have a good way to deal with various accidents. Seeing the flood coming down from above, they immediately had an idea in their minds. The mud men and stone monsters they summoned from underground became their best way to save their lives. The Mudda people lay on the ground, and the mud men and stone monsters quickly merged together. The captain of the guard just gave red armor enhancement and heavy armor enhancement to the mud men and stone monsters, making their bodies stronger by unknown times. After they squeezed together, they became a huge stone shell, protecting the Mudda players lying on the ground. The heavy armor they were wearing became their only way to deal with the flood. This method was the most common way for the Murda people to deal with the backflow of water under the mine. Hide yourself underground to prevent yourself from drowning, and then dig a way out from underground. This method has saved them countless times. Although the flood seems to be big at the moment, for the Murda people, it is just a backflow of water. It's okay, they won't die. So when the flood came down from top to bottom, most of the Murda people successfully protected themselves. Only the captain of the guard had to face the flood directly because of the transport vehicle. At this time, in the captain's mind, the earth totem was a red equipment after all, and it should be able to save his life under such an attack. But he never thought that Gushi had done something to increase the impact of the flood. The water of the forgotten river from different sources mixed together. Some of these rivers carried ghosts and water ghosts, and some even carried a large number of corpses, the kind that would drag people into the water. The water of the Wanchuan River is extremely corrosive, and if you touch it, you will turn it into corpse fluid. In addition, Gushi's men were idle when Gushi came to explore the way, and they really added some things that were made at an unknown time into the river water. Even Gushi didn't know what these things were. The only thing that was certain was that the water of the Wanchuan River was no longer accessible at this time. Even if he entered it himself, he would be affected and might even die in it. This is why Gushi asked his men to follow the flood instead of rushing in front of it. Now the floods rushed over directly, first relying on the strong impact force to hit. If they withstood the impact force, and were not swept away by the flood, then the water pressure in the water would come next, and finally the messy things in the water would bring various attacks to the enemies still soaking in the water. So the captain of the guard really encountered some troubles. When the flood broke through the defense shield set by the earth totem, he felt a force of impact coming at him. The captain of the guard didn't think much and hugged the pillar of the earth totem on the spot. Then he felt a strange taste in his mouth, and then the flood dragged him down, as if trying to separate him from the earth totem. The captain of the guard understood what Gushi was planning, and he also understood that they had been targeted for a long time. Gushi even knew that they had the red equipment, and in order to separate them from the red equipment, he specially created such a big flood. From this point, it can be seen that Gushi is really a master who has mastered red equipment, and has fought against red equipment. Only such a master knows that when fighting with a red equipment user, he must first drag the person aside, and no matter what, suppress the power of the enemy's red equipment. The rest of the things will become smooth. Gushi handled it this way in order to separate himself from the Earth Totem. And the captain of the guard is not actually the master of the Earth Totem. He was able to control the Earth Totem because, on the one hand, the Earth Totem was a patchwork, not even the weakest red outfit. On the other hand, it was because he was blessed with the number of times the red outfit was used by the Murda people, so he could control the Earth Totem. And even if he wanted to control it, he had to do it near the Earth Totem, and ensure that at least 2 pieces of red outfit fragments provided energy support for the main body of the Earth Totem. If he was separated from the Earth Totem, his situation would be worse than those Murda players who had just hidden themselves underground. So after feeling the river water pouring into his mouth, the captain immediately used both hands to hold the Earth Totem tightly. In his mind, even if he was washed out, he would stay with the Earth Totem. At this time in the sky, Gushi also noticed this situation. After all, when the flood rushed down, he had been staring at the position of the Earth Totem. When he saw the captain holding the Earth Totem tightly, Gushi's eyes also flashed a trace of anger. Gushi raised his right hand, and a black feather arrow flew towards the captain of the guard. But with a whoosh, a wave like a gem appeared near the Earth Totem, easily blocking the attack. It was indeed the effect of the red equipment. His attack was blocked, but Gushi was not angry, but a flash of excitement flashed across his face. Red equipment is really amazing. Gushi flew towards the captain of the guard, and pointed at the still turbulent flood. The waterway fence was thrown into the flood, and Gushi's navy, mermaids, floating corpses and seahorse cavalry appeared in the flood at the first time. Their goal is simple: enter the water, and kill the Murda people who are not dead. Of course, if there are too many enemies, they will lead them to the shore, where other undead troops, who have just arrived, will deal with them. Chapter 23:18. Although they entered the water, the influence of the water of the Wanchuan River really did not distinguish between enemies and friends. The 3 underwater troops in front of them could only support themselves underwater for a short period of time at most. Even Gushi did not expect them to achieve any results. All Gushi wanted was to let them enter the water, check the results of the Wanchuan River this time, and drive out the enemies, who were still alive. But Gushi never expected that as soon as the mermaids entered the water, they found that the situation was not the same as what Gushi said. Although there were many corpses underwater, they were not the corpses of the enemies that Gushi mentioned. Most of them came from the original Forgotten River. This situation was obviously not right. How could the enemy not die when such a huge wave hit? The mermaids, floating corpses and seahorse cavalry were all nervous, and they immediately went to different places to search. The seahorse cavalry moved the fastest, so their search range was the largest. The mermaids could also use sound waves to search underwater, and the floating corpses sank directly to the bottom of the water, ready to search for the enemy's position from the bottom of the water. 3 different types of troops, taking 3 different routes, all to find the enemy in the water. But after searching around, they did not find the enemy's location, as if the enemies had disappeared directly into the water of the Forgotten River. Such a situation frightened these troops. These were not just a few enemies, but a large number of enemies. When Gushi came over, he had already explained the situation clearly. He took action to hold back the enemy's red suit, and the rest of the matter was to be handled by his heroes. They had only one mission: to kill all the enemies before the enemy's red suit had enough strength. But now they couldn't even find a single person, so how could they deal with it? So the heroes and leaders of these troops discussed with each other, and finally ignored everything else, regardless of what kind of impact the Forgotten River would bring to themselves, and put more energy on underwater exploration. At the same time, they also launched an attack underwater. In their minds, not being able to see does not mean that there is nothing. If they can attack the area to clean up the ground, they may be able to drive the enemy out. So the heroes discussed with the leader, and went down to deal with it again. This time, they really used all their strength. Especially the mermaids, they not only sang underwater, but also appeared on the surface to sing, causing the water of the Forgotten River, which was originally intended to calm down, to stir up big waves again. The floating corpses sank to the deepest bottom of the water, turning everything upside down. Finally, they dug to the place where the Murda people had buried themselves before. The floating corpses realized that something was wrong. When the Murda people buried themselves, the mud men and stone monsters covering them all increased the effect of heavy armor. This effect was blessed by the red suit, just like the infinite resurrection and infinite counterattack blessed by Gushi, both of which were beyond the level of normal skills. It can be said that even if Gushi's black feather arrow came, they could block it for a while, not to mention the attack of the floating corpse. In just this way, the floating corpses found the location of the enemy. They spread the news immediately. But even so, their news can only reach the hero level at most. Gushi was chasing the captain of the guard, and had no time to turn back to deal with this matter. As for breaking the lid made of mud and stone monsters, they didn't have the ability to do so. The heroes and leaders of a unit were a little helpless. They never thought that they would encounter such a situation after finally coming to the limelight. Now it is no longer a matter of whether to show off or not. It's whether they can handle everything in front of them. If Gushi is really allowed to come back to deal with it, then these Navy troops will not be able to think about fighting in any big scenes in the future. Thinking of this, a trace of anxiety flashed in the eyes of several heroes. Gushi himself has only a few underwater troops, and the investment in these troops is not much. It can be said that they are not even as good as those undead troops mixed in the sewers. Usually they can only patrol in the river to ensure the safety of the waterway. There was nothing left for them to do. Now they finally came out for a big fight, and they thought they would kill everyone underwater. It would have been fine if they couldn't find the enemy, but they couldn't get the enemy out after finding it. This situation was really a slap in their faces. The faces of the heroes here were quite ugly. What should we do? Call the undead on the shore down? No, let's do it again. This time we will use our strongest ability. How to fight? Directly attack the position where the abnormality is found. No, there is no way to break through that position. But don't you see the problem here? The enemy is also guarding against the water of the Forgotten River. That is to say, the enemy is more afraid of this than us. We just need to find the edge, dig in from the edge, and lead the water in, then we can use the Forgotten River to kill these enemies. Or we can use singing to lead the enemy out from underground. We can't get in from the outside, but it doesn't mean that the people inside can't get out. After all, if they didn't come out, they would be trapped underground forever. What if they were also digging a tunnel to escape from underground? That would be even better. If they dig, we will dig too. We will eventually dig the underground and find their location. The heroes discussed it and made a decision. They decided to try again. This time their actions were more targeted. The floating corpses went outward from the position that could not be broken, looking for the edge of such a position. The mermaid kept singing at this position, as if she wanted to spread her singing underground. Only the seahorse cavalry moved back and forth on the water, as if they were looking for a way to escape. Their ideas were simple, to beat or lure out the enemy. But this time, they finally succeeded in doing what they wanted to do. The floating corpse found the edge of the ground cover composed of mud men and stone monsters, and dug out a passage. The water of the Forgotten River flowed into their passage, and dug all the way down. During the work of the floating corpses, the thick cover covering the bottom of the water did not play any role at all, or perhaps the Murda people themselves removed part of the cover to facilitate them to dig a passage from the underground and escape from this dangerous place. But it was precisely because of this reason that the floating corpses seized the opportunity, dug through the hiding place of the Murda people, led the water of the Forgotten River, and contacted the Murda people who had not escaped yet. Chapter 23:19. The buried Murda people didn't expect that they had finally escaped the impact of the river water from top to bottom, and just when they wanted to dig a tunnel to escape, the tunnel was actually dug through. The water of the Forgotten River directly poured in through the channel they dug, and now all the Murda people were soaked in water. This is not the most important thing. The most important thing is that the water of the Forgotten River itself has various properties. The undead under Gushi didn't dare to soak in the Forgotten River for too long. This time, they really risked their lives. The Merinos are living people, and they can't stand the water of the Forgotten River. As long as they touch it, their vitality will drop rapidly. Before the water filled the underground secret passage, a group of Merinos fell into the water, and could never stand up again. When the remaining Merinos saw this situation, they realized that there was something wrong with the water. Before, Gushi used the flood not only to let the flood sweep him away, but also to poison himself with the water. However, they only escaped the first wave of huge waves, and they still couldn't escape the second wave of attacks. At this time, the flood had subsided, and Gushi had dragged the captain to the nearby shore, and attacked with all his strength. After trying several times, Gushi had already seen that although the captain could control the red equipment, it was not his. When Gushi launched the attack, the red equipment just instinctively gave the captain some protection. There are no more left. If the captain of the guard can react, he can still control a little bit, but if he can't react, then it's embarrassing. If he can't control the red suit, it means he can't save his life. Gushi, who understood this, was happy. He had never fought such a smooth battle. He brought out the red suit, but didn't bind it. He controlled the red suit, but the red suit didn't protect the player. Gushi really wanted to fight this kind of enemy again. After understanding the enemy's situation, Gushi was more measured when he took action. He went directly to the captain of the guards, and had no intention of touching Hongzhuang. Instead, he used various methods to lead the captain of the guards away from Hongzhuang. If Gushi really wanted to lead people away, there were many ways. Fate choice is the best method. In addition, the two pairs of arms behind him were not idle. Each arm could release something, and each arm did not need Gushi to operate it personally. Whether it was calling magic or other means, it could easily achieve what Gushi wanted. Although many of these attacks were blocked by Hongzhuang, more were taken by the captain. The captain was still alive, because he had tried every possible way to hold on to his life. Otherwise, he would have been killed by Gushi. Under such circumstances, the captain was still thinking about a temporary turnaround. At this time, he was holding the pillar of the earth totem, and trying to take out something from the pillar. This is the captain's last chance. His earth totem is a standard patchwork red suit, and the iron hoop is used as a fixing. In addition, there are 4 pieces of red suit fragments. Usually, one piece of red suit fragment acts as the main body to play the normal role of the red suit. 2 pieces of red suit fragments act as energy to provide energy for the effect of the red suit, and the last piece acts as a backup and can be used when necessary. The captain of the guard is clear about all the situations of the earth totem. What he is about to take out now is the last piece of red suit fragment used as a backup. And now, he had no intention of using this thing to save himself. In his mind, he planned to drag out this red equipment fragment and die with Gushi. After all, the captain of the guard knew very well that it would take a long time to switch the state of the red equipment, but it would be quite simple to use the red equipment fragment to self-destruct. The captain of the guard was quite familiar with the situation of several red equipment fragments. He naturally knew which one he had to choose with the greatest power to kill Gushi. In the eyes of the captain of the guard, the reason why the Murda people came to this point this time was entirely because of his wrong choice. In order to make up for his mistake, he must take Gushi with him. Only in this way will the Murda people not be affected too much after his death. Only in this way can he close his eyes after his death. But Gushi is now thinking about separating the captain of the guard from the earth totem, and all his attention is focused on this. When he saw the captain of the guard move like this, how could Gushi not understand what the other party was planning? At this time, Gushi had only one thought in his mind, that he must not let the captain of the guard finish what he wanted to do. So the white bone lighting hand behind Gushi raised the dead spirit electric halberd and stabbed the captain of the guard's arm. With this stab, the purple lighting current formed a beam of light and hit the captain of the guard's hand heavily. When this blow came down, a layer of gem-like protective shield appeared on the captain of the guard's body. It was obvious that the role of the earth totem played its due effect again, blocking this blow for the captain of the guard. Just when the captain thought everything was fine, the wind-breaking shattering hand suddenly appeared not far from the captain. This was exactly what Gushi discovered. Although the earth totem can use the gem shield to block most attacks, there is an obvious switching time in between. That is to say, after the magic attack, if you switch to physical attack, you can clearly see the layers between the shields. This is exactly the opportunity that Gushi can seize. The bone lighting hand and the wind-breaking shattering hand are the fastest means of attack that Gushi can use now. A magic attack, a physical attack, and the speed of switching between them is fast enough. What Gushi wanted was the captain's switch. And the fact proved that Gushi's choice was right. When the wind-breaking shattering hand was launched, the color of the gemstone defense shield beside the captain changed obviously, as if it was switching from magic defense to physical defense. But the change of the gemstone defense shield was just within the calculation of Gushi's 2 arms. At the moment when the gemstone color switched, the wind-breaking shattering hand cut in beside the captain, grabbed the captain's arm, and dragged him out. The captain of the guard was holding the earth totem with one hand, and reaching inside the earth totem with the other hand to get something. He was dragged out by the broken wind, so he was unwilling, so the captain of the guard tried to drag his body back. As a result, the captain of the guard felt pain all over his body as soon as he exerted force. His arm was actually broken into several pieces, and then blood lines began to appear on the surface of his body. Finally, his body collapsed on the spot, and the captain of the guard died in front of Gushi on the red equipment he was guarding. Chapter 2320. With the death of the captain of the guard, Gushi finally breathed a sigh of relief. He did not move much, and the molten cast crushing hand flew towards the earth totem that was still in the pillar state, wanting to collect the red dress. But Gushi never expected that when the molten cast crushing hand was about to touch the earth totem, it collapsed with a bang. The broken iron hoop, 2 pieces of wood put together, a skull with gems but obviously missing a part, a roll of linen that was already a bit dark yellow, and a rusty bow arm that was the length of a normal human arm. These items were scattered on the ground, and the light they emitted was rapidly fading from red, and finally turned into colorless discarded items. What is going on? Wasn't it agreed to be a red outfit? How did it become like this? Gushi was speechless. He quickly stepped forward, kicked the body of the captain of the guard aside, and reached out to pick up the things on the ground. Bound hoop, gray, broken from the fragments of the red equipment bound hoop, because it was forcibly activated and used, and then consumed all energy again and failed. It has lost all its power, and can no longer be regarded as a fragment of red equipment. Depleted wood, gray, broken from the fragments of the red equipment tree of wisdom, because it was forcibly picking up the things scattered on the ground. Gushi's movements paused obviously. He was shocked by the situation in front of him. What is going on? Didn't they agree to wear red clothes? What's going on? Fortunately, Gushi can always find someone to ask when he encounters something he doesn't understand. For example, the captain of the guard who just died. Gushi raised his hand, and a ghost flower appeared in front of him, and then an undead laborer walked out of the Knight's Blood Road. When the undead laborer saw Gushi, he bowed his head to Gushi. My lord, you came just in time. Tell me what's going on here. Gushi pointed at the gray garbage in his hand and asked. He spent so much effort, and caused such a big flood. Wasn't it for the red clothes? Now he was given some gray garbage. What's going on? The undead laborer understood Gushi's thoughts at this time. He quickly explained to Gushi. My lord, that is a unique method of the Murda tribe. The red equipment of the Murda tribe is called the toolbox of all things, which has the function of mining all things or repairing all things. It is a functional red equipment. Its biggest feature is that you can use the fragments of red equipment to combine into a new piece of patchwork red equipment. Listening to the explanation of the undead laborer, Gushi's eyes widened. No way, can red equipment be played like this? Of course, this kind of red equipment cannot be used in public. Because the appearance of each piece of patchwork red equipment means that at least 4 pieces, and at most 9 pieces of red equipment are destroyed. The various game forces in the real world will not allow such a thing to happen. Hearing this, Gushi secretly complained in his heart. Even if they allow it, you don't have the strength to snatch so many red clothes. And after snatching the red clothes, why don't you use them yourself? You have to break it down and reassemble it. Isn't this redundant? It seems that this toolbox of everything is not a good thing. Who would have thought that the undead laborer said another sentence at this time? So at the beginning, the Murda people only used the toolbox of everything to mine the ability of everything, mainly to make a living by mining the game world. But later, the Murda people found the red suit cemetery in the depths of the game, and then they realized the usefulness of this toolbox. This is how the process of assembling new red suits began. However, the strength of the Murda people is still too weak. The assembled new red suits can only be used in the depths of the game, and cannot be used in the real world to stimulate some races. This is also exciting enough. If the races in the depths of the game, who fell because of the loss of red suits, knew this situation, they would tear the Murda people into pieces. But the undead laborer seemed to have said something just now. What did you say just now? What's the matter with the red suit cemetery? Oh, this is a situation discovered by the Murda people. He found that in the real world, when the red suits are ownerless, destroyed, or lose their owners for some reason, the red suits will take the initiative to enter the depths of the game. The ownerless red suits are still complete. They will take the initiative to escape to different places. But those red suits that are destroyed in the real world or destroyed during the fall are different. They will only fall to a few designated places. The places where the damaged red clothes fell are what the Murda people call the red clothes cemetery. The combination materials of this earth totem were found in the red clothes cemetery. Oh, are there many such red clothes cemeteries? Are they full of red clothes fragments? How is it possible? The Murda people have only found 4 red clothes cemeteries so far. And it is impossible for the red clothes cemetery to be full of red clothes. Let's put it this way. If you can find 5 or 6 pieces of red clothes in an area of about 1 million square kilometers, it is already a rich mine. After hearing what the undead laborer said, Gushi lost interest in the red suit cemetery. He thought the red suit cemetery was the kind where there were red suit fragments everywhere, one step at a time, and a bunch of red suits would appear when you kicked one. So the cemetery is like this. Gushi lost interest all of a sudden. The patchwork red suits were useless to him, as he had the means to get them. There was really no need to spend so much effort to find the fragments of red equipment and piece them together. Besides, Gushi didn't have a toolbox for everything, so what was the use of knowing how to piece them together? Forget it, just treat this as news, and forget about it. It's just a pity that this battle happened. We could have gotten the red suit, but ended up in this situation. Before Gushi could say anything, the undead laborer said, according to the classification and judgment of the Murda people, this area is also one of the red suit graveyards. This Murda army was actually looking for red suit fragments nearby at the beginning. Because the original pulse of the game world suddenly appeared, they came to check the situation. After all, compared to the fragments of red clothes, the main job of the Murda people is to dig and capture the game world. Ah, we are considered a red clothes graveyard here? That's right. And after years of research by the Murda people, in addition to the formal use of the toolbox of everything to make and piece together red clothes, they have also developed 3 ways of piecing together without the toolbox of everything. So the amount of piecing together red clothes has increased all of a sudden. There are several professional guards who have been looking for red clothes nearby. That's why they found out about the situation here and rushed over in the shortest time possible. Chapter 2321. Oh, is there a way to piece together fake red clothes without using the toolbox? Hearing this, Gushi finally became interested. Before, he was not interested in piecing together red clothes because the cost performance was not high. The pieced together red clothes are not as good as the real red clothes. At most, they can be used as upgrades to orange clothes. The most important thing is that they cannot be bound, and you have to find all kinds of red clothes fragments. With that time and energy, Gushi would have gotten a few real red clothes long ago. But after the undead laborer said that, Gushi became somewhat interested. Anyway, Gushi's mirror underground palace is already in this red dress cemetery. What if he accidentally encounters red dress fragments one day? Knowing more methods will naturally give you more ways to deal with it in the future. Yes, in fact, this is also a helpless thing. The Murda people seem to have friends all over the world, but in fact their status is not high. Everyone is willing to identify with the Murda people because they can find the right game world faster and more accurately than others. But if they are discovered, they can piece together the red suit. Even if the red suit is not very powerful, they will be targeted by all races. So they have been looking for other ways to piece together the red suit to prevent someone from destroying their toolbox of everything. What kind of logic is this? Gushi didn't understand the thinking of the Murda people. In order to prevent his behavior from being regarded as a villain, he strengthened the treatment of this behavior. This is irrational. The undead laborers didn't know how to explain it. Anyway, that's what the Murdas did. In the real world, they are submissive, but in the depths of the game, they can be said to be rampant. Most of the player races in the depths of the game don't have red equipment. Although the Murdas dare not bring their toolboxes to the depths of the game, they have pieced together red equipment. No matter how bad the pieced together red equipment is, it is still red equipment. It's like playing to crush other player races. The Murda people who have tasted the sweetness in this regard will definitely not give up the means of research. At the same time, they will also consider what they will do in the future if they don't have the toolbox of everything. So it is actually very reasonable for them to make such a choice. But from the perspective of Gushi and others, all this is not very logical. Forget it, you tell me, I will just listen to a joke. Gushi didn't understand the situation here, so he didn't think too much about it. After all, he was not the kind of person who meddles in other people's business. Okay, sir, when the Murdas started their research, they were thinking about finding a way to make a patchwork red suit without the toolbox of everything. Their initial idea was to use the power of the patchwork red suit to assemble a new red suit. But later they found that this was just their ideal state. No matter how red the patchwork red suit is, it is just something patchwork, and it is far from the real red suit. They can use the toolbox of everything to piece together the red suit, but they can't adjust the power in the patchwork red suit to piece together a new one. The final route is completely crooked. None of the 3 methods are normal ideas at all. Hearing this, Gushi became interested. Oh, tell me about it, I am a little interested now. The first idea actually comes from Jinchuriki. You should know this thing, right? Well, I have heard of it. It seems to be to seal the uncontrollable power into some people's bodies. Let that person exert the power of this thing, and make the power easier to control. Gushi thought for a moment and responded. Yes, this first method is similar to the idea of Jinchuriki. The first person selects a good person to use the red suit a number of times. Then the broken red suit fragments are thrown into the body of the selected person. After that, it depends on the fate of the selected person. If he is lucky and can suppress the power of chaos, he can become a walking human-shaped red suit. If he is unlucky, then there may be a bang, and nothing will be left. How high is the success rate, and what are the conditions? Are there any special requirements when selecting candidates? Gushi heard this, and I'm familiar with this. Jinchuriki, methods such as hitting a living stake, have been learned at Hades University. Isn't Jinchuriki just an enhanced version of a demon possessed? Now the most that can be done is to replace the things inside the human body with red fragments. At this time, the undead laborer explained again, there are no special requirements for the candidates, as long as they are a person. However, there are certain requirements for the red fragments, which must meet the classification of fixed red fragments, main red fragments, energy red fragments, and spare red fragments. At the same time, it is best if the attributes are mutually beneficial, rather than mutually exclusive and conflicting. Of course, if there is an extremely strong body, that is another matter. What does an extremely strong body mean? For example, ancient dragons, ancient titans, ancient giants, etc. Gushi thought about it, and said decisively, this really exists and can be done. The undead laborer was somewhat surprised when he heard it. He just said it casually, but he didn't expect that Gushi's subordinates really had such a person. But he didn't quite understand. Would Gushi really be willing to arrange for a patchwork red suit for a creature like himself who was not human? Even if the patchwork red suit was pieced together, it was still a red suit. Normal speaking, shouldn't such things be given to people you trust? In fact, Gushi was not thinking about these things. Gushi's idea was very simple. He had so many undeads under his command. It was not easy to make a Jinchuriki. He could just pick a group of them out for experiment. No, infinite resurrection. Gushi didn't believe that if he died a few more times, there would be a situation that he couldn't handle. Well, if you want, you can start looking for red suit fragments and conduct some experiments. Hearing this, all of Gushi's words stopped. He just listened. He didn't have any red suit fragments, and now even if Gushi found a suitable body, he couldn't piece together a piece of red suit. Forget it, go on first. In addition to the Jinchuriki type, what are the other two types? Another method is to use the Earth's energy to bury the red suit fragments underground and combine them. The advantage of this method is that you don't have to worry about a sudden bang and everything being blown up. And the Earth's energy and the power of the Earth veins are almost endless, unlike the Jinchuriki, who also has to consider whether the user can bear it. The only problem is that if the red suit is used, even if the location is fixed, it cannot be moved at all, so the Murda people have developed this method, but have never used it. I don't know if this effect is real. Chapter 23:22. Gushi had no way to say anything about this situation. After all, he didn't have any suitable red suit fragments, and he had no place to experiment. It can be said that in this regard, Gushi was poorer than the Murda people. At least the Murda people had several pieces of patchwork red suits, but Gushi didn't even have a piece of red suit fragment. The Murda people didn't make this kind of red suit with a fixed position, so where could Gushi go to make a living stake for this red suit? At this time, the undead laborer told Gushi about the third method. Compared with the previous two methods, this third method is even more bizarre. The first of the previous two methods is to use the body as a red suit transfer device to reassemble the scattered red suit fragments. The second method is to use the earth veins as a red suit transfer device. This can be said to be quite imaginative. But the third method in front of us is really speechless. He actually pieced together the red suit against the red suit. This third method is to select red suit fragments with opposite or counteracting attributes for combination. And when combining, no support is given, just let the red equipment fragments devour each other, and finally use some means to store the devoured results. Then, through some means, inject the obtained things into a piece of red equipment. In this way, the red equipment will automatically decompose into 7 to 10 special red equipment fragments. And this kind of red equipment fragment does not need any external force, and it can become the basis for piecing together red equipment. In other words, as long as someone is willing to give up a piece of red equipment, they can exchange it for 7 to 10 pieces of piecing together red equipment. As for whether there will be losses or gains, it depends on everyone's thoughts. Anyway, after this method was developed, the Murda people did not experiment with it, and did not even spread the news. After all, it was a taboo for them to piece together red clothes with red clothes fragments. Moreover, if they wanted to destroy other people's red clothes, it would be equivalent to directly offending all the player races. The Murda people can thrive in the real world, but they rely on their smooth attitude. This kind of thing, the Murda people themselves understand it, but no one is stupid enough to experiment. It can be said that among the three methods, only the first one has been truly tested, and only the first one has been truly successful. Well, I've learned a lot. But this also gives me an idea. Especially for the third method, their research direction is to treat the red suit as a living organism. Even the broken red suit is regarded as a complete living organism. Gushi muttered for a while, and surprisingly resonated with the ideas of the Muda people. After hesitating for a while, Gushi turned his head and looked at the large lake not far away that was formed by the water of the Forgotten River. His undead were there cleaning up the player troops of the Muda people. Judging from the current situation, it will take at least 3 to 5 hours for the battle to end. As for cleaning up the battlefield, it will probably take at least 1 or 2 days to complete. Gushi was idle now, so he thought seriously and pointed at the ground, and a gate leading to the city of Aridov opened. Go in and find the undead, who was transformed by double death. Gushi pointed at the undead laborer and said directly. The undead laborer also understood that without using Luna, he was the best way to find the undead, who was transformed by double death. After all, their sources are all the same. They all come from the captain of the guard, who was cut into pieces. But the undead laborer didn't quite understand why Gushi asked this undead to come out. Just by standing here, the undead laborer knew that the talent of this captain of the guard was not very high. At least not a dazzling existence. In the past, Gushi would just send such corpses to the city of Aridavi and let them be nurtured for a while. If not, they might be cut into pieces and used to fertilize the fields or raise pigs. But no matter what, Gushi gave the order, and the undead laborers would do it. Soon the undead laborers disappeared into the city gate. And Gushi also took this opportunity to pick up the body parts that he had kicked away before. Because they were cut into pieces, Gushi spent some time to sort out the body parts. After moving the body aside, Gushi looked at the things that had turned into gray garbage due to repeated use, and some thoughts flashed through his mind. This is a corpse that was delivered to the door. Just now, while asking the undead laborer about the red dress, Gushi also asked about the situation of the Modar people. After knowing that the Modar people mainly make a living by selling game worlds, and that each Modar guard captain has the means and experience of finding, capturing, and activating game worlds, Gushi understood that this is a good material for making contracted undead. At least Gushi does not have to worry about the guard captain's corpse making a contracted undead, and not having the courage to deal with the game world. It is for this reason that Gushi asked the undead workers to find the undead transformed from double death. This time Gushi planned to play a bigger one. Make this key contracted undead better. And the captain of the guard in front of him is a man at first glance, so Gushi can also dispel the rumor. Otherwise, there will always be people who think that Gushi's contracted undead only likes women. This is simply a rumor. It's just that Gushi happened to meet a woman when he was making a contracted undead. Gushi muttered, and recalled the ways of piecing together red clothes that the undead laborer had said. Many of these ways are useful to Gushi now. Some can even be used directly in dealing with contracted undead. Gushi rethought about it at this time, and the more he thought about it, the more he felt that this trip was not in vain. When he thought of the key points, Gushi even drew some drawings on the ground. In order to make good use of this corpse that could almost be used as a spare part and these messy things in front of him. At this time, the undead laborer also ran out of the city of Aridov. Behind him was a zombie. The face of this zombie looked exactly like the captain of the guard. After becoming a zombie, the blue skin also turned blue-gray. However, from its changes, it can be seen that Gushi's previous guess was correct. The talent of this captain of the guard was not very good, otherwise he would not have transformed into a zombie among the 3 basic undead. Sir. After being dragged in front of Gushi, the undead laborer immediately said to Gushi, I have brought the undead here. Well done, you go back first. Gushi's attention was all on the zombie at this time. Facing the words of the undead laborer, Gushi just waved his hand and let him back away. Chapter 23:23. Just as the undead laborer was about to retreat, Gushi suddenly thought of a possibility. Wait. The undead laborer immediately stood in place, waiting for Gushi's order. At this time, Gushi stood in front of the undead laborer, thought seriously, and then looked at the zombie again. Stretch out your left hand, and touch the zombie's forehead. A petal of the nether spirit flower fell on the zombie's forehead. Gushi allocated 1 use of the nether spirit flower. Try to summon the night blood road. The zombie guard captain did it immediately after hearing it. The next moment, the undead laborer standing in front of Gushi stepped on the night blood road and appeared in front of the zombie guard captain. It really works. Then you two stay aside, and I take a look at the situation. After trying his idea and seeing if it could be realized, Gushi dealt with the body fragments on the ground. It just so happened that those gray garbage came in handy. A roll of yellowed linen turned out to be someone's shroud. It was originally of red quality, mainly used for resurrection, and blood loss to increase combat effectiveness. Of course, now all functions are gone, this thing is just a gray garbage. Gushi simply used this linen as a shroud of Allah, and used it to wrap the body pieces on the ground in the shape of a human body. However, this body piece can't be fixed with linen. Gushi also split 2 pieces of wood, made them into plywood, and used rusty bows and iron hoops to make ribs to fix the body. With this help, Gushi finally put the body pieces back together. As for the broken skull, it had been thrown away by Gushi, and all the gems inside the skull were sewn into the belly of the corpse. After dealing with the corpse, Gushi waved to the captain of the zombie guard. The captain of the zombie guard didn't quite understand what he was doing. At this time, Gushi raised his hand, and 3 petals of the ghost spirit fell on the corpse, the undead laborer, and the head of the captain of the zombie guard. Your talents were not very strong, but your memories were more or less preserved. What I need to do now is to strengthen your memory and talent. If 1 undead has insufficient talent, then 3 undead can be added together. Quantitative change will always lead to qualitative change. As Gushi said this, he took out a contract scroll and tore it open on the corpse that had been processed. The captain of the zombie guard and the undead laborer didn't know what happened. Just as Gushi tore open the contract scroll, Gushi's left hand moved, the effect of the ghost flower was activated, and the captain of the zombie guard and the undead laborer were sucked into the corpse that had just been put together. A corpse and 2 undeads exploded on the spot, and countless corpse parts kept circling in the air. And those gray garbage were stained with some red light again, because of the ghost flower that Gushi put in. However, because of the treatment of the murder people, the last foundation of those gray garbage was also consumed, and there was no chance to restore to red equipment. These red lights only flashed by. Even if Gushi put in the empty spirit crystal, it was useless. Fortunately, under the influence of the red light, so many corpse fragments also reassembled and slowly began to form a new undead that looked a bit strange. The newly appeared undead was somewhat similar to the more common stitched monster among the undead, that is, the green fat man with a small arm on the back that can throw an iron hook. However, the stitched monster in front of him was not fat at all, but somewhat similar to Frankenstein, with the effect of strengthening the body. This was a relatively good change for Gushi. At least, as Gushi said, the 3-in-1 combination allowed the extremely poor talent of the captain of the guard to change from quantitative change to qualitative change. Now it is at least a high-end undead. Then various changes appeared on the new undead. This was the first time that Gushi dealt with such a 3-in-1 undead combination effect, so he was not in a hurry, but was waiting for the natural reaction of this combination to end. This wait lasted about 10 minutes. When everything stopped, a red light flashed in front of Gushi's eyes. Then when Gushi looked at the strange undead in front of him, he couldn't help but sigh. This undead really combined all the characteristics, but it looked quite weird. The undead in front of him was about 3 meters tall. His body was not fat, but it was full of fat. He didn't look chubby, and he just looked strong standing there. There was nothing obviously wrong with his body, except that his head was a little bigger, and part of the skin was gone, revealing the broken skull underneath. The skull was full of gems of various colors, and even his eyes were made of 2 thumb-sized gems, 1 red and 1 blue. At the same time, his chin seemed to be stuck by the bow arm, sealing his entire mouth, making it impossible to see the position of his mouth. His body was covered with patches, with large and small sutured wounds. Some parts were wrapped with linen bandages, some were simply bound with iron hoops, and some were fixed with wooden nails. There was a right hand behind him, and the 3 arms were almost the same size. The right hand behind him held a flail made of gems and zombie claws. The left arm held a 2.5-meter-high bark shield, and the right hand held a 4-meter-long wooden stick. At his waist, a wooden stick as thick as an arm pierced directly from the back of his waist, pierced through his body, and pierced the outside of his front abdomen, with dark green corpse fluid flowing on it. The color of his legs was obviously wrong. One leg was blue-gray, and the other leg was dark blue. The shoes made of wood veneer were nailed to his feet. Because of the wooden stick inserted in his waist, the body of the undead was slightly bent forward, but no matter what, his eyes were always fixed on Gushi. Gushi stretched out his hand. The contract scroll had been torn open before. Now Gushi had to make the final invitation. My name is Gushi. I hope to sign a contract with you and borrow your power to fight for me. I am willing to fight for you. The undead in front of him said slowly, his voice was quite gentle, as if he was speaking in a blower. At this time, the attributes of this undead were also displayed in front of Gushi. Ding! The contract with the undead was successful, and the Titanium Lion, contracted undead, joined the player. Name, Titanium Lion, contracted undead, race, Stitcher. Level, Level 18, 0/250000. Talent, Variable Stitcher, stitched together from multiple corpses, can switch combat modes at any time. Status, Life, 1490/1490. Magic, 540/540. Attributes, Strength 15.6, Agility 9.7, Constitution 14.9, Intelligence 8.4, Perception 8.7, Charm 6.6. Skills, Undead Magic level 11, Defense level 7, Offense level 9, Long Weapon use level 9, Heavy Armor use level 5, Tower Shield use level 5, Equipment Crafting level 4, Alchemy level 6. Chapter 2324. Titanium Lion, what's your name? Gushi looked at Titanium Lion and finally asked curiously. Yes, my name before I died. Titanium Lion said calmly. My name before I died? How much do you remember before I died? Do you have any experience in capturing and processing the game world? Yes, the capture and processing of the game world by the Murda people are what we do often. After all, you don't encounter the red suits in the depths of the game every day, but you can often encounter them in the game world. I have independently completed more than 30 times of fixing and capturing the game world in my lifetime. Titanium Lion explained to Gushi proudly. That's fine, I take you to see something. Gushi took a look at the battle here, which had reached its final stage. After that, it was just a matter of cleaning up the battlefield, and Gushi no longer needed to watch over it. So Gushi naturally wanted to take Titanium Lion away and let him deal with the most important problem in the game world. As for the battlefield in front of him, it was actually nothing to Gushi. If the Murda people hadn't attacked directly this time, Gushi would never have sent out such a large army. Fortunately, this battle gave Gushi some gains. At least, he could safely hand over the capture, fixation and activation of the game world, instead of letting himself be dragged there all the time. When following Gushi back, Gushi noticed that the Titanium Lion actually had a mount. This is a rare thing among the contracted undead. You should know that among the contracted undead under Gushi, none of them have their own mounts. Even Princess Anna has established her own Princess Council, but she doesn't have her own mount. Usually, he can only rely on various means to command. Sometimes, if he needs to hurry, he can only find another way, which is why Princess Anna and others pay more attention to the road. However, the Titanium Lion in front of him has his own mount. Although this thing looks like an ordinary warhorse, it is still a mount. Riding on the back of the warhorse, the Titanium Lion can easily keep up with the evil coffin that is not running freely. He can communicate with Gushi about the situation in the game world while running. Titanium Lion has not forgotten why he came here. Didn't he feel that there was a source of the game world on Gushi's territory? Although he is dead now, and has become a contracted undead under Gushi, this has also achieved his original goal, right? Gushi explained his thoughts on the game world all the way. The most important thing is not the arrangement and selection of the game world, but Gushi's desire to monopolize the resources in the game world, especially the undead resources. Sir, you said that it is possible to produce a new game world every week? Yes, every week. Gushi nodded affirmatively. Then what you mean is that the locations of these game worlds appear on your Yellow Spring Road. You want all the people who died in the game world to step on the Yellow Spring Road and finally enter the underworld controlled by you? Titanium Lion asked again. Yes, can it be done? It's not a difficult task. In fact, there is no need to specially adjust the portal of the game world, as long as you are willing to open the Yellow Spring Road to the game world. So many of your plans are unnecessary. If you trust me, I will handle it. Just tell me the result you want. I brought you here because I trust you. My goal is very clear. The game world must be suitable for my undead troops to play the game. It would be best if I could get all the resources in it. Also, I want to advance to the game world. Listening to Gushi's request, Titanium Lion thought for a while. This is not difficult, but I have a question to ask. Do you want to monopolize these game worlds? For now, yes. After all, I am not strong enough and do not have enough manpower. Taking out my game world is just to increase opportunities for others. Wait a little longer. When I have dealt with everything here and got a star field in the real world, the game world can be open to the public. Now all the game worlds are still based on me. Real world? Your Excellency also came from the real world? Titan Xingshi asked curiously. Yes, I am also a person of status in the real world. Gushi said proudly. By the way, you were surprised when you heard about the real world. Did the Modar people also come from the real world? Yes, the Modar people have several passages from the real world to the depths of the game. The Earth Totem I mastered before has the means to directly drag people down. So it is normal to be able to enter and exit the real world. Oh, The thing you used before is called Earth Totem. I was so concerned about the production method of the red suit that I forgot to ask about it. How did you get this red suit? At this time, Gushi had already explained everything he needed to explain, and now that he had time, he naturally had to talk about some small talk. I was promoted to guard captain by merit. After being promoted to guard captain, there are two choices. One is to move in the real world and sell the newly captured game world to various player races. This part is called a salesman. The other part is like me, leading troops to patrol the real world or the depths of the game to capture new game worlds. This part is called a hunter. If you choose to be a hunter, you can apply for the use of the toolbox of everything, whether it is for self-protection on the road or for combining and piecing together red clothes. It is up to the captain of the guard. I was lucky and came down through the passage. Although it was a little difficult to walk, it was quite smooth and I didn't encounter anything. Finally, I successfully entered the red clothes cemetery and found several pieces of red clothes. As for the Earth Totem, it was the idea of the tribe. I exchanged several pieces of red clothes for the red clothes fragments needed for the Earth Totem, and finally made such a thing. Gushi listened and became a little interested. Oh, the research of the Muda people is really quite extensive. What else is there besides the Earth Totem? The Phantom Sword is said to be used by salesmen. The Divine Armor is used by the locators who enter the game. There are also things like the Hidden Book, the God King Helmet, and the One Wakar. There are about 7 or 8 varieties. I only study the Earth Totem, and I only know the general idea of the others. If you want, I can find a way to write them all down for you. Chapter 23:25. After communicating all the way, when Gushi and his friends returned to Huangquan Road, Gushi had almost explained everything. Titanium Lion also understood what Gushi wanted. Titanium Lion was quite familiar with Gushi's request. The most important thing was that he understood Gushi's mentality of not wanting to destroy the integrity of Huangquan Road, and not wanting the game world to leave its original location. He was quite familiar with the arrangement of the game world. It was just that he had captured the game world before and sold it. Now he needs to protect these game worlds. This is not a difficult task, as Titanium Lion used to do this frequently. After all, not all games can be acquired and sold on the same day. They also need to hide the game world somewhere, and protect them well to prevent others from snatching them away. So the Murdas have a full set of methods to deal with the game worlds. Now all of this is Gushi's. After arriving at Huangquan Road, Titanium Lion went to work by himself. But before he left, he reminded Gushi. It was no problem for Titanium Lion to capture, fix and activate the game world. After all, he was familiar with these things before. But asking him to enter the game world to fight, that would be impossible. Because the Muda people themselves make a living by selling game worlds. They took the game world, but rarely made it their own. Unless the game world is quite beneficial to them, they will not take the initiative to use any game world. For this reason, Titanium Lion really does not have much experience in fighting in the game. If he were to participate in the game world alone, he might be able to do it. But to manage multiple game worlds in a unified manner, and arrange for people to enter the game world to fight, it is also necessary to ensure logistics, ensure the safety of the arranged people, and ensure that they get enough benefits. This is something that Titanium Lion really cannot do. Gushi also understood the idea of the Titanium Lion. At this time, Gushi had already started to think about finding a contracted undead who specialized in brushing the game world and commanding the undead to attack the game world to handle this matter. In addition to the contracted undead that he had promised to arrange for Luching before, why did Gushi feel that the gap in his contracted undead was getting bigger and bigger? And they were all the kind of corpses that were difficult to find and difficult to identify the contracted undead. Isn't this going to cost Gushi his life? Gushi looked at the Titanium Lion, who was about to deal with the game world, and his face was speechless. But Gushi is really short of manpower at the moment, and only Gushi can handle this kind of thing. So even if he knew it was a troublesome matter, Gushi could only accept it. Forget it, there are still many things to do right now, especially the situation in Luching. It's better to go over and take a look. As soon as the battle here ended, Gushi's mind was no longer on the battlefield. He actually interrupted the handling of some things in Luching, and rushed over to face this battle. At that time, he only had time to send the portal to Luching, and he didn't know what was going on in Luching. Now that the war was over, Gushi also planned to go over and take a look. So after the Titanium Lion left, Gushi was also ready to leave. But at this moment, Shea appeared near Gushi. What happened this time? Seeing Shea appear, Gushi's heart tightened. This time, the appearance of the Murda people was also because Shea found something wrong first, and then gave the information. Now Shea appeared nearby, which scared Gushi. He thought there were enemies nearby again. After all, this is not impossible. You know, Gushi is now deep in the game. Although no one can be seen within a few kilometers, it does not mean that Gushi will not be discovered. So when Shea appeared, Gushi's heart was lifted. Nothing, just come here to talk to the adults. The terrain map you want has been drawn. This is it. In addition, our monitoring point has been pushed to 5,000 kilometers away. But I want to expand the scope. I just asked some new undead in the city of Aridov. They said that they found the Yellow Spring Road from 10,000 kilometers away. In other words, in the depths of the game, some forces have a much larger exploration range than we imagined. 5,000 kilometers may not be a suitable range. 10,000 kilometers may be more appropriate. Gushi knew who the new undead Shea was talking about. They should be the Murda people who came with the titanium lion. But what Shea said was quite reasonable. It's just that for this kind of thing, Shea usually just needs to make a decision. After all, Gushi never really cared about intelligence. Now Shea would come to talk to him so seriously, which means that Shea's plan would mobilize a lot of resources. And Gushi guessed that these resources would most likely be wasted. Of course, the waste that Gushi mentioned here does not refer to useless investment, nor does it mean that the investment will not have any effect. Rather, these resources will be used outside the Yellow Spring Road. Although Gushi's Mirror Underground Palace fell into the depths of the game, his core is still on the Mirror Underground Palace, and the Death Cities everywhere. If a Death City is built outside the Mirror Underground Palace, it is naturally not a waste of resources. But Gushi believes that what Shea wants to use is not the Death City. It is estimated that it should be something like a signal tower or a beacon tower in the past. And the number that Shea needs is not a small number, so Shea will come to Gushi to make various requests. Okay, tell me what you want to arrange. You are still smart. This is my plan, please take a look. Shea said while taking out her own plan. That's right, this time Shea took out not a map, but a complete plan. In addition to the location layout, the plan also has different architectural design drawings. Just as Gushi guessed, Shea planned to set up beacon towers, signal towers and the like. But in addition to these, there are also aviation towers, watchtowers, Vulcan pillars and the like. What made Gushi speechless was that there were architectural designs for fixed-point spacecraft here. It can be seen that Shea is planning to set up a huge monitoring network at the outermost edge of Huangquan Road. Although this is a good thing, the number required is too much. Even if it is to be able to transmit information back in a short time, the investment is too much. Gushi turned to the end of the plan, and found that the resources needed here were enough to build a new Death City. Just when Gushi was about to refuse this matter, Shea said something. Chapter 2326. Sir, we can't just passively defend all the time. After all, the Mirror Underground Palace will be in the depths of this game for a long time. If there is no detailed intelligence, it will be unbearable to defend every day. Sir, you don't want to be called back suddenly in the middle of the game. Okay, you convince me. Then let's do as you said. Can you guarantee that everything within 10,000 kilometers is under our control? Sir, please rest assured, it is absolutely possible. Shea was quite confident about her plan. She also said to Gushi, by the way, sir, I saw that the game world has already been built over there. Do we need to arrange for people to enter the game world to inquire about the news? Gushi was silent for a while. Also arrange it. Don't think too much about other things. At least we need to know what the new game world looks like, and what famous things there are. You have to pay more attention to this. In the future, we will have many people from the game world. We don't guarantee that we know about every game world, but we can't be completely unaware of what happened in the game world, right? I understand, sir, please rest assured, I will take care of it. After saying that, Shea retreated. After being interrupted by Shea, Gushi was less interested in going to Lucheng. At this time, Gushi simply thought about it, and prepared to go back to the battlefield to take a look. See what he got from cleaning up the battlefield. After this matter is handled, he will have time to go to Lucheng. As for the way back, Gushi could still have a good sleep in the evil coffin. After all, in order to deal with the affairs of the Muda people, Gushi had not slept well for several days. After all, he didn't know anything at that time, and thought he had encountered the real red suit, and all his thoughts were on how to deal with the red suit. There was no time to think about other things. After the battle, he had a lot of things to tell the titanium lion, and he had no time to rest along the way. Now Gushi felt that he was a little lacking in energy. It was just in time to get back to the battlefield. It would take at least several hours. Gushi planned to take this opportunity to have a good rest. He didn't want to have so many things to do. After setting the direction for the evil coffin, Gushi closed his eyes and saw Lingxi appear in his dream. First Xie, then Lingxi. Couldn't they let him be quiet? Gushi pressed his forehead speechlessly. Lingxi, what happened? Gushi asked curiously. Lingxi said seriously at this time, My lord, something big has happened. Oh, has Yin City been invaded again? No, another red dress has been nurtured in the 10 scenes of Yin City, and someone has already completed the binding. They plan to hold a red dress exhibition in a year and a half. Another red dress has been nurtured? Gushi heard that this was really a big deal. After all, most people now know that the 10 scenes of Yin City have nurtured 10 red dresses. But the only thing that was successfully nurtured was the nether spirit flower in Gushi's hand. Now that another red suit has been nurtured, I believe everyone's attention will be focused on Yin City again. Such a situation will have some impact on Gushi. For example, he will be compared with the new red suit holder. Or his existence will be noticed by the new red suit holder. After all, Gushi is a player from the department of Principal Lu of the Nether University. Even if Teacher Jun agrees, he cannot be considered a legitimate descendant of Yin City. The current new red suit holder is different. He may replace Mr. Feng and become the direct descendant of Yin City. Yes, the news has been announced. It is said to be from the Azure Blue Curtain, one of the 10 scenes. The name of the red suit is Azure Saint Cloth. It is said to be a half-body armor, but as for the properties and characteristics, it is impossible to find out. The only thing that can be confirmed is that this Azure Saint Cloth is medium armor, which can be worn by necromancers and death knights. It should be specially designed for the death knight. Teacher Jun has been preparing for rebirth and job change since the beginning. Among the 10 scenes of Yin City, many are prepared for the death knight. He is really a master who can see 10 steps ahead. Listening to Lingxi's introduction, Gushi made a judgment at the first time. At this time, Lingxi said, Teacher Gonglingyu is also looking for adults. I have contacted Teacher Gonglingyu. She said that because of the appearance of a new red dress holder, she might leave Yin City and return to the ghost world a little earlier. She hoped that after finishing the things at hand, the adults could rush back to the Yin capital as soon as possible. While she still had time, she taught everything that should be taught. Then she would select a graduation topic for the adults. She would ensure that the adults could complete their studies. If it was delayed any further, if Teacher Gonglingyu left earlier, the adults would have to go to the ghost realm several times to complete their studies. Hearing this situation, Gushi couldn't help but sigh. The teacher still cares about me. Please tell the teacher for me, and tell him that I am in the critical moment of the game, and I am not free to go back for the time being. I will rush back as soon as I finish the things here. And I have not been idle during this period. My level has been upgraded to level 18. When the situation here is more stable, I will find a way to pass level 19. I will definitely complete the graduation project before the teacher leaves. By the way, is Yen Ryu here? Gushi said here, and suddenly remembered something. Yes, I call you. Lingxi said quickly upon hearing this, and the next moment, Yen Ryu was dragged into Gushi's dream. Lingxi, what's going on? I'm still in class. If I fall asleep, I won't be able to copy my notes later. Ryu, it's the adults looking for you. Ah, adults, is there any topic you don't understand? I can explain it to you now. No, I have some things here. You can copy them down later, and ask Teacher Gonglingyu for me. Well, it's about the relationship between the capital of the Death City and the city cluster. This is the teacher's specialty. I hope the teacher can give a response. In addition, please ask me, my largest Death City is about to hit level 24, the area has expanded to a considerable size, and it will soon merge with another Death City. Will the two Death Cities become one city, or will they be counted separately? Will the levels of the two cities be added together, or will they be counted separately? Another issue is about environmental placement. There are also some problems here. Chapter 23-27. When Gushi returned to the battlefield, he woke up in a daze. He slept, but he didn't sleep. After all, he had been explaining things along the way. When he finished explaining things, he opened his eyes and returned to the battlefield. Gushi didn't know what to say in this situation. Is this an oppression beyond the power of cattle and horses? Gushi was speechless. Fortunately, the battle here was over at this time, and Gushi's men had already started to clean up the battlefield. Gushi came here to check the situation, but he didn't have anything important to do. This made Gushi feel a lot more relaxed. Standing in the basin where the Murda people originally gathered, looking at the lake that had turned from a basin into a gray lake, Gushi suddenly had an idea in his mind. Although the flood caused by the Forgotten River has subsided, the forgotten river that Gushi opened along the way has not been taken back. The river water still flows along the waterway that Gushi blasted. Because at that time, in order to make the flood peak more smoothly hit the Murda people, Gushi can be said to have guided the river many times along the way. Now, even if there is no one pushing it from behind, the river water will not go in other directions, and will eventually flow into the battlefield in front of us. It can be said that as long as the Wanchuan River does not stop, the water on the battlefield in front of us will probably always exist. Before, Gushi planned to drain all the water. But now, standing by the water, Gushi has a different idea in his mind. At this time, the lake water has completely changed in quality. Although the color is still gray, the function of the water has changed significantly. It can be said that if you put a bottle of water here, it will be poison of green quality or above. But the effect is unknown, and the time limit is unknown. This is a benefit for Gushi, and the most important thing is that as long as the lake here is left, the river can also be left. In this way, this line along the river, more than 2,000 kilometers, is Gushi's territory. Gushi can make various arrangements here. At least Gushi can arrange a route, so that his troops can travel faster between here and his own Huangquan road. At the same time, Gushi can also build some different satellite cities here. Although it is not necessarily possible to build a death city, it is still possible to ensure some special resources. Draining the lake water in front of you, and then looking for some garbage equipment below is a waste of this battle. For this, Gushi specifically stopped his men who were cleaning the battlefield and called out the navy that had retreated to the city of Aridov. Under Gushi's order, the 3 heroes and many leaders of the navy all came to Gushi. Sir. The one who spoke was the hero of the Seahorse Cavalry. Gushi recognized this Gushi after a look. He looked like an ordinary undead, holding a trident in his hand. Because he needed to move underwater, he didn't wear any heavy armor. He just covered his body with a layer of green scales, which could be retracted into his body when he came out of the water. As the scales on his face were retracted, his face was exposed normally. It's you, Ananx, you came just in time. Go into the water and clean up the underwater later. I don't plan to drain the water from this lake. I plan to keep this lake. Understood. Do we need to bring up all the bodies below? Ananx asked directly. Bring them up if you can find them, don't waste them. Understood. Do you have any other requirements besides this? The heroes were quite clear about the underwater situation before. It can be said that they dragged the Murda people directly to hell. Finding some bodies underwater was not a big deal for them. They didn't think that Gushi called them out just for such a small matter. After this lake is left, I plan to build a satellite city here. I think it will be called Wanchuan. Forget it, call it Guihu Town. Then I will draw some water from the Styx from the Yellow Spring Road and connect it to the upper reaches of the river here. Then there will be a waterway from the Yellow Spring to the Styx, and then to the Wanchuan River. I will definitely arrange people to patrol this waterway. Then this task will be handed over to you. Hearing this, Ananx's face was visibly excited. Their navy was finally going to rise. Seeing Ananx like this, Gushi deliberately asked, What? Is there a problem? No problem, no, sir. Are we short of some troops? Ananx finally said. Yes, there are only 3 underwater troops. Although the troops are sufficient, the level is still a little bit low. In the past few years, you have been patrolling, or cleaning the river channels of Shimu Lake or Yimo River. You don't have much experience. To be honest, you haven't reached the standard of a regular army. It's just that I haven't strengthened the navy, so you can get promoted. At this point, Gushi looked at Ananx. He found that Ananx also had a face of affirmation. Gushi was a little surprised at this. The number of heroes under his command is increasing, and Gushi has little contact with some heroes. Some of them he has only met before and don't know much about their personalities. Gushi really didn't know that he had such a hero under his command. This is really considering everything for Gushi. Isn't he worried that Gushi will increase the number of underwater troops, train stronger underwater troops, and directly squeeze them out? But looking at Ananx's expression, it is obvious that he is not unaware of this, and he is still thinking about doing this. I really don't understand Ananx's idea. In fact, Ananx really doesn't care about more troops. After all, they are too short of manpower now. After every day's mission, they have no time to upgrade their level. Not to mention strengthening themselves or advancing themselves. A long time ago, several underwater heroes wanted Gushi to pay more attention to the underwater troops. Now that the territory has expanded and the workload has increased, how could they still hold Gushi back and not let him arrange more new underwater troops? So many things Gushi thought about were too much. Really, that's great. If you train sailors in a short time, It's better to classify the sailors. It would be even better if we could divide them into surface troops and underwater troops. It would be best if the surface troops had a large transport capacity. It would be best if the underwater troops focused on movement speed. If possible, it would be best to target the water of the Wunchwan River. We can't stand the water in this river. We can only soak in it for an hour at most before we have to get out. Chapter 2328. The final battlefield cleaning, the semi-fixation of the Forgotten River, the re-excavation of the river channel, the arrangement of satellite towns, etc. These things seem unimportant, but they took up a lot of Gu Shi's time. And in the end, it also involved several departments under Luna, Shea, and Princess Anna. Gu Shi's idea of finishing it on the same day and leaving on the same day was not realized in the end. By the time he had dealt with everything and could hand over the things on hand, about 4.5 days had passed. At this time, Gu Shi no longer had the idea of going to Lucheng. He was almost exhausted, so how could he have the energy to go there? After returning to Aridov City and asking about the handling of the outer defense line, Gu Shi had the idea of going back to Yin City. In the past few days, Shea and Princess Anna cooperated with each other to clean up the outside of the Mirror Palace. Although not much was done, starting from the edge of the Mirror Palace, the area radiating outward within 500 kilometers had been roughly cleaned up, which could ensure that there were no enemies. Now the transport troops under Gu Shi are moving various construction materials to this location, preparing to build a defense line and actually control this area. If it weren't for the various resource points in Gu Shi's Mirror Underground Palace that have begun to be reworked one after another, they can't even get enough supplies. After all, which of the several cities in Gu Shi's Mirror Underground Palace does not need a lot of resources to rebuild? Right now, the construction here has just begun, and it has encountered many troubles. That is the problem of city construction. Satellite cities are easy to deal with. Choose a suitable land vein or water vein, arrange the population there first, and then build a few small houses to occupy the land first. But death cities are not so easy to deal with. The requirement of a death city is that it must be a dead city. Now most of the death cities under Gu Shi's command are either found in the ruins of the original city or camp and resurrected, or they are snatched from others. Gu Shi can build satellite cities in the periphery, but he can't build death cities. Gu Shi now needs to go back once and ask the Hades University to see if there are other ways to get death cities. However, Gu Shi feels that this matter may need to be found out by Gongling Yu. After all, there is no way to learn the 3 divine skills of death, and the Hades University may not be able to study how to make death cities. On the contrary, Gongling Yu has so many death cities under his command, except for those that were robbed and converted from ruins, there will always be some different ideas. Gu Shi can ask Gongling Yu about this matter. Gu Shi looked around and found that the Mirror Underground Palace was temporarily stable, and he didn't need to keep an eye on it, so he thought about returning to Yin City. After thinking for a long time, Gu Shi quickly handed over the matter. Then he drove the evil coffin and went to Poison Peach Mountain first. Gu Shi, who was preparing to transfer from Poison Peach Mountain, was actually muttering in his heart. Next time, don't say that you are in the game, just say that you are in the Death City. It is faster than saying that you are in the game. Fortunately, now I just need to pretend to quit the game. As Gu Shi muttered, the 30-kilometer road of the tribulation was finished in a blink of an eye. Gu Shi easily came to the vicinity of the Poison Peach Mountain from the main gate of the Arida City. When he returned to the Poison Peach Mountain again, Gu Shi found that the plots of land that were torn away by the several underworld masters he brought last time had now been automatically repaired by the game. Although this plot of land looked like a patch on the ground, it had more or less restored some of its original aura. The fortress that was destroyed by Gu Shi before is now completely abandoned. It can be seen that this area has been regarded as a forbidden area by the forces in the game. As long as they are not enemies of Poison Peach Mountain, no one would think of coming here. Even the nearby forces no longer regard this place as their main target. This is actually good. Poison Peach Mountain is now the only death city in Gu Shi's hands that is not deep in the game. Gu Shi must have a city for facade and transit. It is also a good thing for Gu Shi that Poison Peach Mountain can develop quietly. After taking a look at Poison Peach Mountain, Gu Shi was about to start the means of exiting the game and pretending that he had just left the game, but at this moment, Gu Shi suddenly heard Moore's voice. "Sir, why are you here?" Gu Shi looked back and found that Moore was flying towards Poison Peach Mountain, with a large number of undead dragons under his command. Judging from their flying speed and angle, these undead dragons are already familiar with this place. "Hey Moore, why are you here?" "Oh, I got some good stuff in the activated giant rock city before, so I wanted to digest it." It just so happens that I have nothing to do, and there is no war in Dragon City, so I brought them here to hunt dragons. How long have you been out? Hearing Moore's words, Gushi knew that Moore had been out for a long time, and she didn't even know that there were some problems in the Mirror Underground Palace. Moore thought for a while, and said seriously, "Please rest assured, sir, I won't leave the defense line for too long. When I come here, I will leave people and messengers behind. If there is anything, I can rush back as soon as possible. In addition, I am not always here. Every time I come here, I will only attack the overseas Dragon Island 3 times. After 3 times, I will retreat to Dragon City to rest. So I will not miss important tasks." Moore said very seriously. Unlike other heroes and leaders under Gushi, Moore's situation is more special. After all, she is a hero who comes with a quasi-red suit. And she is the only hero who can command the undead dragon, and has a special strengthening effect on the undead dragon. Other undead heroes can lead undead dragons, but there is a difference between ordinary leading and special strengthening. Whether Gushi's undead dragon troops can be successful actually depends on Moore. She will naturally be more confident when she communicates with Gushi about this. And she is not running around. After Dragon City no longer needs her to guard it, she has been conquering the overseas Dragon Island in this game world. This is also her Dragon Blood Bottle promotion task. If she stays in Dragon City all the time and doesn't go anywhere, waiting for Gushi to kill the dragon, how long will it take? Besides, the dragon that Moore killed was also in Gushi's double death, and the body can be dragged back. At most it will not be counted in the Knight's Blood Road. This is a win-win situation for both parties after killing a dragon. So why can't Gushi let Moore move freely? Chapter 2329. At Poison Peach Mountain, Gushi talked with Moore for a long time. During this period, because of Moore's persistence, they really killed a considerable number of dragons. Every time Moore went to the overseas Dragon Island, at least 5,000 to 10,000 dragons were killed. The dragons also tried to ambush Moore, but Moore's ability was not only in selecting and strengthening undead dragons, but also in commanding and fighting. Moore also had a strong talent. She can be regarded as the first 2-in-1 hero under Gushi. It's just that Gushi didn't think of it at the time. Gushi only had such a concept after making the Titanium Lion. But this can also clearly prove Moore's talent and strength. It can be said that Moore is quite capable, and knows when to advance and retreat. Maybe it won't be long before Moore can complete the upgrade task of the Dragon Blood Bottle by himself. By that time, Gushi will get a red equipment for free. In this case, Gushi will naturally know what to choose. Therefore, Gushi's attitude towards Moore was more of encouragement and support. "Do you need anything here?" "No, the existence of the adults is the best support for me," Moore said with certainty. Just as she said, Gushi's existence is really the best support for Moore. As long as Moore is still under Gushi's command, she can give more and more undead dragons even if Gushi does not show up. Listening to Moore's words, Gushi smiled. "How about this? I will transfer your double death support to Poison Peach Mountain. In this way, the dragons you kill will be transferred to the Poison Peach Mountain in batches, and then the bodies will be sent to the city of Aridov to be nurtured." "No, sir, if you can switch the birth point of the double death undead, then send the undead dragons to Dragon City. It is good for the undead dragons to be born there." When Moore heard Gushi's plan, he hurried forward to persuade him. During this period, when she killed dragons, she got too many benefits from Gushi's double death effect. At the same time, I also understand what I need. What's the point of sending all the dragons to Poison Peach Mountain? At most, they can replenish their troops without going back. But what's the benefit for the dragons? And Moore's men also need to transport the bodies of the dragons they killed, and some of the things they robbed back. There are many things to be buried in Dragon City. Anyway, they have to go back. So why put the birthplace of the undead dragons in Poison Peach Mountain? Isn't that redundant? So Moore opposed Gushi's idea at the first time. Gushi couldn't help but laugh when he heard it. He saw Moore's attitude. "Okay, you decide for yourself. If necessary, you can ask Luna to help you build a fast passage to Dragon City. In addition, if you want to guard Dragon City, then do your job well." "Don't worry, sir. I will do what I should do," Moore said seriously. Gushi didn't say anything else, just waved his hand. At this time, Moore also introduced her gains during this period to Gushi. Moore usually goes to the overseas Dragon Island to fight the giant dragon once every quarter, and fights the Dragon Island 3 times each time. It has become a routine now. After hitting the giant dragons again and again, Moore has killed more than 200,000 giant dragons. However, because the Dragon Island is located overseas, many giant dragon corpses have not been taken back, and the number of corpses that can be transported back is about 100,000. The number of undead dragons transformed by double death is correct. Among these undead dragons, there are many species that Moore himself has never seen. This is very important to Moore. You should know that Moore's growth, in addition to combat experience, relies on the blessing of the dragon blood bottle and the undead dragon. New undead dragon species that have never been seen before are a great improvement for Moore. And all of this is exactly what Gushi did not grasp. After talking to Gushi about so many things, Moore even took out a list of undead dragons and gave it to Gushi. The thick list did not record the names of every undead dragon, but the different types of undead dragons. When Gushi got the list, he suddenly felt that his Ghost Dragon book had obviously changed. It can be seen that the Ghost Dragon book has recorded all the types of undead dragons here. Later, Gushi's necromancy level also changed. From the original level 30, successfully jumped to level 31. This situation also made Gushi smile. Necromancer is a spell he has been using all the time, and it is also a unique skill of the Necromancer. At level 10, you need a book of advancement to break through the realm. From level 20 onwards, each advancement has different requirements. When Gushi broke through level 20, he relied on the Book of Titans he researched, which was a direct reward for him. Gushi has been stuck at level 30 for quite a long time. Gushi originally thought that he would have to wait until more people knew about the Book of Titans before he could break through this level. But he never expected that he would achieve this breakthrough here. Gushi's heart moved, and a thick magic book appeared in his hand. The color of this magic book has turned pure black, and the surface of the book is full of scales of all sizes. If you look carefully, there will be a shadow of a giant dragon flowing through each scale. Dragon Soul Book. When he got this magic book, Gushi understood what happened. Because his Ghost Dragon book absorbed too much information about undead dragons, it has now successfully advanced to a higher level Dragon Soul Book. With the opportunity of the Ghost Dragon book to advance, Gushi's level of necromancy also successfully broke through. It can be said that Gushi can now advertise that he is a necromancy master, instead of the previous necromancy expert or something like that. This situation makes Gushi somewhat relieved. It seems that in the future, I have to study more about the branch effects of necromancy, and at least improve other skills. With this idea, Gushi looked at the Dragon Soul book in his hand with a different look. If Moore wasn't still here, Gushi might just find a place to sit down and look through the Dragon Soul book to study it again, and see if he could take this opportunity to make a breakthrough in his other skills. Moore didn't know what Gushi was thinking, and she was still talking about her situation. Gushi also listened slowly and nodded seriously until he heard a different piece of news. Chapter 2330. Wait, are you sure? Hearing Moore's words, Gushi's face became solemn. While asking Moore to repeat, he called out the orange-clad guard new nine-tailed fox. It turned out that Moore was just talking about some abnormalities he found when he attacked the Overseas Dragon Island. Normally, Moore went to the Overseas Dragon Island more than once or twice. Even if all the dragons on the Overseas Dragon Island died, some news should have been spread. And Moore's attack pattern is still so unique, coming 3 times every quarter. When they were tired, they returned to Poison Peach Mountain to rest before going to the Overseas Dragon Island. The route did not change, but none of these dragons wanted to chase them out. When all the dragons on a dragon island were killed, they were not nervous or impulsive, as if they did not notice anything. This is obviously unreasonable. You have to know that although it is a game world now, the NPCs and wild monsters in the game also have scripts. When they are not participating in the battle, they also have their own lives. But when Moore said this, Gushi felt that they had become even weirder monsters, the kind that would attack when they saw the enemy, but if the enemy ran away, they would retreat to their original position and not pursue. If this was just a computer game, Gushi might think this situation was quite reasonable. But this was not a computer game at all. Gushi had experienced so many games, killed so many enemies, and had no idea how many undeads he had, but he had never seen such a dragon. At this time, Gushi was wondering if these dragons were brainwashed. That's why he called out the Orange Guard new Ninetailed to ask about her situation. The Orange Guard new Ninetailed who was called out at this time obviously changed again. There was an aura close to red on her body. It seems that the 4 sets of Ninetail Divine Power have made the Orange Guard new Ninetail close to the level of red equipment. Although there are still 5 pieces short of the full set of Ninetail Divine Power, the aura in front of him has already proved the power of the Orange Guard new Ninetailed. Ninetail, you're here just in time. Moore has encountered some problems. See if it's possible that someone has influenced his mind. Orange Guard new Ninetail said seriously, I need to go to the scene to see this. It's not enough to just guess here. Can we catch 1 or 2 dragons? Gushi asked. No, catching 1 or 2 dragons can only confirm whether it has been influenced by the mind, but there is no way to find the source. I think the adults must not only want to know whether these dragons are affected by the mind, but also want to know where the final source comes from. I have to admit that the orange-clad guard Xingoa has a very good grasp of Gushi's thoughts. After hearing what the orange-clad guard Xingoa said, Gushi nodded affirmatively. I don't really want to get involved in this matter, but my Death City is in this game. If there is any problem with this game, there will also be problems with Poison Peach Mountain. So I leave this matter to you. Go with more and take a look. If there is anything wrong, you can directly deal with it without affecting the battle. Just give me a result in the end. Orange Guard knew Nine-Tailed Fox likes a master like Gushi. Things only look at the results, not the process in between. Sir, don't worry, I will handle this matter. Gushi nodded. Regarding the situation of the Orange Guard, Gushi was more willing to believe it. Okay, then I leave the matter here to you. More, you should cooperate when the time comes. I have something else to do now, so I have to go back to Yin City first. You can arrange your time yourself. After explaining the matter clearly, Gushi quickly left the game and exited the game through the coordinates he had recorded. The next moment, Gushi appeared in a game portal in the real world. Looking at the unfamiliar scenery, Gushi hesitated. He remembered that the coordinates were correct, and this was the real world, but where was the location in front of him? Why does the environment here look so retro? Wooden houses and less roads, inconspicuous towns, and wild woods. This doesn't look like the style of the undead, but rather a bit like the style of Western cowboys. Who are you and why are you here? Before Gushi could figure out where he was, a voice came from behind him. Gushi looked back and found a Western cowboy with a big white beard standing not far away. Although this Western cowboy had a revolver hanging on his waist, Gushi could clearly feel that his real source of power was not this, but a chaotic fire power in his body. Hello, I just came out of the game. Where is this place? I remember that I entered the game near the underworld. How did you get sent here? The underworld, that's far away. Your luck is really bad. You were sent so far after leaving the game. This is the true demon town in Yanjing domain. As for how far it is from the underworld, I'm not sure. But kid, your luck is not good. These days are the Demon Transformation Festival in our town. It's safe here during the day, but at night, no one can control you. Gushi blinked. What's going on? He only said one sentence now. Why do you think you are very strong, but we are decent civilians you? Wait a minute, sir, I have no intention of not leaving, I just want to know how to leave now. Is there a portal here, or a star-level train or something like that? The old cowboy was interrupted, and his face turned ugly. He wanted to teach Gushi a lesson. But he was interrupted. This is not okay. It is disrespectful to the elderly. It is against the will of heaven. So the old cowboy pointed at Gushi and said, Young man, you can't do this. I tell you. Hearing this, Gushi knew that he couldn't get anything out of the old cowboy, so he turned around, threw the evil coffin out, and jumped on it. Without waiting for the old cowboy to say anything, Gushi drove the evil coffin away from the town in front of him. Gushi didn't know anything about the situation in the Yen realm in front of him. But Gushi didn't need to know too much, because his purpose of quitting the game had been achieved. Even if someone checked, they would only find that Gushi quit the game, and was accidentally thrown here. No one would think that Gushi was not in the game during this period, but was deep in the game. Gushi had to enter the game openly, and come out of the game openly, so that no one would suspect his whereabouts and destination. This was Gushi's only purpose. Now, Gushi just wanted to find a way to quickly return to Yin City. If there was no star-level train or portal in the Yen realm, then Gushi had other means to go back. Chapter 2331. The Eastern Legion headquarters is also located in a special location between two star fields. However, unlike the styles of the other legions, all the camps of the Eastern Legion are not built together, but scattered on many foundations like flying mountains. Each pile of mountains has a different function. For example, the outermost mountain group consisting of 5 peaks belongs to the Information Transmission Department. This is the information channel responsible for connecting all star fields related to the Eastern Legion. The player on duty here today received a rather strange message. This message came from Yanjing Domain and went through a normal information channel. Originally, this message would at most be classified as not urgent, and would be transferred to the corresponding department for further processing after a wave of information was processed every hour. But the message in front of him was different. There was a red number 1039 on the message. They all knew this mark, which meant that this message was sent by the red-clad boss. There are so many star regions in human society, But the number of red-clad bosses is only slightly over 1,000. Just think about how high their status is in human society. Although they don't know why this boss would use an ordinary communication channel, the staff on duty still handle it according to the highest level standards. This information was passed to several commanders, and the commander-in-chief of the Eastern Legion. Not long after this message was passed, the entire Eastern Legion was filled with earth-shaking laughter. The duty personnel of the Information Transmission Department may not know too much. However, the commander, deputy commander and commander-in-chief of the Eastern Legion have a wide intelligence network. They never thought that they would just sit here and a huge pie would fall on their heads. The person who sent the message can be directly confirmed that he will soon become the second person in human society to own 2 red suits. There is more than 80% chance that the second red suit is a defensive red suit. He needs to be in charge of a star field or suppress a border. Originally, the Eastern Legion thought that they had no direct connection with Gu Shi. After all, Gu Shi was previously in the territory of the Northern Legion, and later because of the Southern Legion, he got the opportunity to master the second red suit. He also found that he had become a hot commodity, and took the initiative to leave the public eye and enter the game world, in order to avoid all kinds of troubles, and improve his level. After all, at Gu Shi's age, he has another red suit in his hand, which is the best time to impact. Originally, according to the calculations of the Eastern Legion's think tank, Gu Shi would reappear at level 45, and accept the second red suit given by human society. And he would be stationed in a star field of the Northern Legion, or even go to the front line of the battlefield. After all, the relationship between Gu Shi and the Northern Legion is the best. But they never expected that Gu Shi would be sent to the territory of the Eastern Legion because of a portal error when exiting the game world. Now he was picked up by the Eastern Legion. Although the information given by Gu Shi is to request to use the Legion portal to send himself back to the Yin City, or directly to the Yin and the Underworld. But the high-ranking officials of the Eastern Legion are not fools. How could they let such a good opportunity pass by? Send someone over immediately to contact Gu Shi and see what happened to him. Hurry up. And remember, don't be as stupid as the Southern Legion, who really thinks that they can trick people to their side with some tricks. They made too much money in this way before, so they thought everyone could cheat. We must show our magnanimity honestly. Even if we don't get Gu Shi's approval, don't make enemies with him. Before the red suit reaches 5,000 pieces, he is probably the only one who can have 2 red suits. When the red suit exceeds 5,000 pieces, he will be several steps ahead of others. If you can make friends, don't offend. In the chaos, the Eastern Legion finally sent a small team of players directly to the Fire Realm, to the location where the message was sent, to see if they could help Gu Shi. At this time, in the main city of the main star of Yanjing, Gu Shi was looking at the scene in front of him with a speechless face. When he left the true demon town before, he really didn't know that the so-called Demon Transformation Festival was actually held in the entire Yanjing. And the Demon Transformation Festival would actually be like this. At this time in the main city of the main star, Gu Shi looked at the players around him, who were spitting flames from the inside out, looking like skeletons under the flames, rushing around on the street. They drove vehicles at extremely high speeds on the street, recklessly crashing into anything they could see. Those who were hit wouldn't say anything, they would just hit others at a faster speed. Anyway, being caught up and knocked down is all your bad luck. If you don't have the ability, just shrink down to the ground and stand on the street. If you can't hit others, don't say anything. Of course, Gu Shi is safe at this time. This is certainly not because Gu Shi's evil coffin moves at Mach 7. After sending the message just now, Gu Shi needs to wait for a reply here. The real reason why those players riding real ghost fires on the street dare not hit him is because there is a level 60 ghost behemoth standing in front of Gu Shi. With this ghost behemoth around, as long as the movement speed does not exceed a certain level of collision, it will be directly knocked out. No one paid attention at first, but as more and more players were knocked out, a vacuum zone gradually appeared around Gu Shi. In this way, Gu Shi could sit on the evil coffin and watch this chaotic demon transformation festival. What kind of ghost is this? Everyone looks like they are going crazy. Gu Shi looked at a player driving a burning van not far away, and knocked away a player riding a burning motorcycle. The player on the motorcycle rolled 3 times in front of Gu Shi before he got up again. At this time, everyone could clearly see that several bones of this player were broken due to the impact of the van. But he didn't care and just took a few steps out. All his bones returned to their original state. He dragged the vehicle on the ground again, as if he had never been injured, and rushed out in the flames. It's just a pity that this player's luck is not very good. As soon as his new transportation started, a burning Grand Tourer rushed out from nearby and sent him dozens of meters away. Then, there were flames everywhere, and various transportation vehicles came and went. In the chaos, Gushi didn't see whether this player had left in advance. Chapter 2332. Hello, are you Mr. Gushi, the breath of the dead? Just as Gushi was complaining about the haunted demon festival, a voice came from his side. Several players in military uniforms squeezed out from the chaotic flames. Are you from the Eastern Legion? When Gushi saw a normal person, he rushed over as if he had seen a relative. The ghost behemoth, who was protecting Gushi in front, also automatically retreated into the evil coffin. Yes, I am the colonel of the Eastern Legion, guarding the East Gate, Qin Feng. You can call me Dafeng. Hello, Colonel Qin. I didn't want to trouble you this time. But now there is no way. I accidentally ended up here. And judging from the current situation, all Interstar trains to Yanjing territory has stopped, and I am in a hurry to leave, so I can only ask the military for help, hoping to use the military's portal to leave. If there is no way to reach Yin City or Yiming Realm directly, it is also okay to go to a place with Interstar trains. Seeing the military coming, Gushi immediately put forward his request. Hearing Gushi's words, Qin Feng also said, "It's true. The situation in Yanjing is a bit special. May every year is an important period for their Demon Transformation Festival. All star trains entering and leaving Yanjing are suspended, or they take a detour and don't come here at all." Ah, so serious. Of course, you don't know that during the Demon Transformation Festival, it's better during the day, but at night, it's like this. It's good that you see the great fortune. If a train full of flames appears on the street by accident, think about what will happen. Gushi doesn't even need to see it, just think about it, and you will have a sense of the picture. At this time, Qin Feng didn't intend to continue talking. He said to Gushi, "Forget it, let's not talk about this. Mr. Gu, you want to go back to the underworld, right? In order to enable the troops to respond quickly, our Eastern Corps has set up special portals in all the star fields under the jurisdiction of the Corps. It can ensure the timely transmission of military orders, and the rapid mobilization of troops during wartime. As for outside the jurisdiction, there is no way. However, when we came here, the commander had already said that Mr. Gu should go to our headquarters camp first and borrow the commander's special transmission channel to transfer to the jurisdiction of other legions. Once there, it will be much easier to go anywhere." When Qin Feng came, he had already received the order from the legion commander. As long as it was not an anti-human request, no matter what Gushi proposed, they could agree to it first. Even if some requests are difficult, they must be agreed to first and dealt with later. It can be said that Qin Feng's authority is high enough at this time. If Gushi is tougher, and says that he wants to open a portal to send him to Yin City directly, it may be possible. However, Gushi appeared here this time mainly to locate his position. To tell others that he did not disappear, but went into the game. Qin Feng and others did not know what Gushi was thinking, and they were quite happy to see that Gushi agreed. After all, Gushi is so easy to talk to. He is so easy to talk to that Qin Feng feels that he is a little too much. Should he help Gushi to get something more? Gushi doesn't know that he still has such a face and status. This arrangement is enough for Gushi. Then let's go now. This is really not a place to stay. Seeing that Gushi has agreed to everything, Qin Feng also said directly. After all, when they were talking just now, several collisions had occurred nearby. The burning great luck has appeared nearby several times. Gushi felt that this great luck had set its sights on him. If he didn't leave quickly, he might run into great luck. Let's go, let's go! Mr. Gu, come this way, we go to the fixed portal over here. Fortunately, Mr. Gu is smart, and knows to wait here at the Xingmao bunker. In the Yanjing realm, we only have 3 long-term portals, 1 at Xingmao bunker, and 2 in the wild. The remaining portals need to be temporarily deployed. If Mr. Gu were not here, we would have to travel another way, which would be really troublesome. Qin Feng said, as he led 2 military players to protect Gushi and headed southeast of the Xingmao bunker. Along the way, Gushi encountered all kinds of weird collisions and attacks. And here, anything can be used as a mount. Gushi thought that the Great Fortune was already a very excessive situation at first. But he really didn't expect that the Great Fortune was just a normal operation. Just as Gushi turned a corner, a submarine that had turned into a skeleton in flames slid over from a distance. Although it was not a big thing that was more than 100 meters long, it was at least 50 meters long. The most important thing was that the submarine with flames all over its body was actually trying to dive underground while sliding forward. It was not enough to hit someone, but it also dragged the person underground. Is their Demon Transformation Festival so big? In addition to various technological means of transportation, Different animals are also the mainstream on the streets. From giant elephants that are 4 or 5 meters tall to crocodiles that are more than 1 meter long, these mounts are all covered with flames, and their bodies are burned into skeletons. Even when passing through the sewer entrance, you can see a giant python that is turned into flames passing through the sewer. I don't know who is waiting to hit them in the sewer. Anyway, Gu Shi's journey is truly an eye-opener. Sometimes he thought that if he came here to kill a few people, and dealt with these mounts instead of killing people, he could get a lot of special undead. However, whether it was these mounts or the players on them, they all seemed to be crazy. They didn't even consider whether there was a person in front of them. They would just hit anything they saw. Of course, there were also smaller ones, who dodged on the street to avoid being hit. Anyway, there was no peace along the way. Sometimes the road would be blocked by these players. Fortunately, Qin Feng was quite familiar with the environment in front of him. He took Gu Shi to move back and forth on different roads. Although he walked a little slower, it was relatively safe. Soon they came to the portal area on the side of the demon bunker. There are quite a few portals in this portal area. Because of the demon festival, it has been strengthened. Apart from other things, the portals in front of him have been reinforced in various ways, to prevent someone from directly bumping into it and knocking it down. In a corner of the portal area, Gu Shi noticed a standard military portal. Chapter 2333. Mr. Gu, when the portal opens, please don't go to the wrong place. During the Demon Transformation Festival, the spatial positioning of the Flame Realm is quite chaotic. If you go to the wrong place, you may not be able to locate it. Before taking Gu Shi to the portal, Qin Feng specifically reminded Gu Shi. I know, thank you for the reminder. Gu Shi took a look at the portal and found that there were many coordinates engraved on the portal in front of him. This is the characteristic of the military portal, which has a strong versatility. A portal can connect many places. Such behavior is quite military, but it is also because of such behavior that some deviations often occur when the space fluctuates and is chaotic. If it is placed on a civilian portal, this deviation is undesirable. But on a military portal, all this is nothing. Because the military does not care about these, they have special targeted training in their usual training, and under normal circumstances, they will not have any problems. The only problem is that when non-military personnel use the portal, they may accidentally run around and cause trouble. So when non-military personnel use the portal, the leading military players will take the initiative to remind them. Qin Feng was just reminding them out of habit. However, the moment he stepped into the portal, Gu Shi realized how useful such a reminder was. In addition to the correct passage behind the portal, there are many chaotic and twisted passages. Although Gu Shi was quickly dragged to the correct location, he could clearly see that if there was no special person to remind him just now, he might have lost his way inside. After the chaos ended, Gu Shi found that he had come out of the chaotic hell of Yanjinjiu. At this time, he was standing in a cloud layer, behind which was a fairyland composed of countless mountains. Welcome to the Eastern Army's base, Tiangong. This is the East Heaven Gate, please follow me. Qin Feng, who appeared beside Gu Shi, stretched out his hand and pointed to the cloud layer. After saying that, Qin Feng led the way in front, and at the same time, Qin Feng introduced the situation of the Eastern Army to Gu Shi. As the base of the Eastern Legion, the mountains flying in the sky are just the surface. There are deep seas and the underworld under the clouds. Even for some special reasons, the Eastern Legion has a special necromancer unit and a death knight unit. This is not like the Balian city at the beginning, where a few death knights stayed together and called themselves the Death Knight Corps. The number of players in this undead unit is really counted in tens of thousands. At this time, Qin Feng also intentionally or unintentionally reminded Gu Shi, this underworld ghost army still has no special commander-in-chief. Usually, several captains are in charge of the management. After saying this, he did not persuade Gu Shi to join the Eastern Legion or anything. He did not give any special instructions. This surprised Gu Shi a little. At the same time, he also had a good impression of the Eastern Legion. Following Qin Feng, Gu Shi easily entered the core of the Eastern Legion's base. At this time, Qin Feng pointed to the White Palace group composed of 5 peaks not far away and said, "That is the residence of the deputy commander, and it is also the passage we are going to use this time." Gu Shi knew very well what the deputy commander of the army was like. That was the position for the red-clad boss, who served as the army's mascot and red-clad guard. Judging from the palace in front of him, the welfare of the Eastern Army was quite good. But the next moment, Gu Shi was stunned by Qin Feng's operation. Qin Feng did not even notify anyone, and took Gu Shi into the palace, and then entered the side hall at the back. Is it okay to go in directly like this? No, I told Commander Wu about your situation when I came here. He said that he didn't use this passage very often, so you can just use it if you want. This statement surprised Gu Shi. When Qin Feng said that this was the residence of the deputy commander, he thought he was going to meet the deputy commander of the Eastern Army. He didn't expect that the Eastern Army would be so easy to talk to. Without saying anything, they directly gave Gu Shi enough help. Compared with the Eastern Army, the behavior of the Southern Army was so stingy. When they came, they hinted like this, and when they left, they did the same. I really don't know where they got the confidence from, thinking that they are the kind of new college students who know nothing. With just a few words, they will be tricked into the Southern Legion. In Gu Shi's heart, the attitude of the Eastern Legion is authentic. Thank you. Qin Feng looked at Gu Shi in a puzzled way, not knowing where Gu Shi's thanks came from. Looking at Qin Feng's clear and stupid expression, Gu Shi also smiled. It seems that this is not a calculation against me, but that this is their original style of doing things. This made Gu Shi nod his head gently. It would be great if it were all like this. Those people in the Southern Legion have been so high and mighty for too long, and they really treat everyone as fools. I am not willing to pay, but I still want others to cooperate. I really think too much. Gu Shi muttered in his heart while looking around. Although it is a side hall, the architectural style here is exactly the same as the overall one. The entire palace is built with white jade, even the floor is white. This is cloud bone stone, which comes from the game world that is exclusive to the military. The main feature of this thing is that it is light, and can be used to build air fortresses or flying fortresses. The output is not low, and we usually only select white cloud bone stone for use. If you need it, you can apply to us. Various colored cloud bone stones are actually very cheap. The most important thing is that cloud bone stone is still very light. Look at the ground here, from this side to that side, such a thick ground, only 300 kilograms are used. If you just want to build a small flying palace, 2 to 3 tons will be enough. By the way, there is also a companion or yuntai in the Yanggu stone mine. The quality of that thing is relatively high, and it is generally used to make the shell of the airship, and of course, it can also be used to make weapons. Qin Feng saw Gu Shi's eyes, and began to introduce. But he didn't realize that when he introduced, Gu Shi's eyes became brighter and brighter. In the end, he even stopped. What's wrong? Nothing, I just want to see if the cloud bone stone is what I want. Oh, do you need it? Qin Feng asked with some curiosity. At this time, Gu Shi was squatting on the ground, carefully touching the white stone on the ground. When Qin Feng asked this, Gu Shi raised his head and smiled. I need it. How much is this thing per ton? Chapter 2334. Big Profit. When they walked into the side hall, Gu Shi and Qin Feng both had smiles in their eyes. Both of them felt that they had made a profit this time. Qin Feng thought that he had sold some useless things at a good price and established a long-term sales channel. Gu Shi was happy that he had found the special materials that Eve needed to build the undead Cloud Hall and train the Death Titan. The effect of this Cloud Bone Stone on the Death Titan is like the effect of Dragon Steel on the Undead Dragon, which has the effect of strengthening and alienating the Death Titan. The difference between Gu Shi's current Death Titan troops and Undead Dragon troops lies in this aspect. Eve had been trying to find a solution before, but she had never found the right materials. Various materials with lightning effects are not suitable for Death Titans at all. Eve studied for a long time and finally found the reason. It turns out that no matter how undead the Death Titan is, he is also a Titan. Lightning is just one of the abilities that Titans can master, and it is not the foundation of Titans. The earth is the source of Titans' power. Their bodies are like carved out of marble. In other words, Death Titan needs stone to strengthen its body. Some good stone materials are very important for Death Titan. This Cloud Bone Stone is the most suitable material for Death Titan that Gu Shi found. Gu Shi plans to order a batch of them and let Eve try them. If they are suitable, then buy them for a long time. If they are not suitable, it is not a waste to take them back to make flying castles or something. With a smile, Gu Shi entered the teleportation point behind the side hall. At this teleportation point, there were obviously several small light balls as tall as a person placed in various corners of the room. Behind these light balls were different pictures. Qin Feng pointed at them one by one and introduced them. These are the stations leading to several legions. This is the teleportation point leading to the capital star field. This is the teleportation point leading to the power council. This is... Gu Shi listened at the back until Qin Feng pointed to a teleportation gate and said, this is the portal to the Aurora domain of the Northern Main Star domain. That is the main city of the Northern Star domain. The Evening Realm also belongs to the subordinate star domain of the Northern Star domain. We have already contacted the portal there for you. As long as you go there, you can directly transfer through the portal there and go directly to the Yin City. Ah, how can I be so embarrassed? After hearing what Qin Feng said, Gu Shi had to admit that the work done by the Eastern Legion was really comfortable. Gu Shi just wanted to borrow away from here, but they did so much for him. The most important thing is that they really didn't ask for anything. In comparison, what the Southern Legion did was inhuman. At this time, Gu Shi's contempt for the Southern Legion deepened. Qin Feng didn't know this. After he explained everything he should explain, he sent Gu Shi into the portal. After Gu Shi really left, and went to the Aurora domain of the Northern Main Star domain, Qin Feng went to the nearby hall. At this time, several commanders of the Eastern Army were all sitting there drinking tea, waiting for Qin Feng's news. When they saw Qin Feng coming, they put down their teacups and looked at Qin Feng at the same time. How is it? Everything has been arranged. It can be seen that Gu Shi has a very good impression of us. That's fine. One of the senior officers nodded with satisfaction, as long as it feels good. We don't need to do too well, as long as we are better than those scammers in the Southern Army. You did a good job this time. We in the Eastern Corps believe in rewarding meritorious service. How about this? I will grant you 3 weeks of leave. Go wherever you want to relax. Qin Feng also laughed when he heard it. Thank you, General. Several legions smiled and ignored Qin Feng, but talked about Gu Shi. At this time, Gu Shi really did not stop for a moment, and used the portal in the main city of the Aurora domain to transfer, and finally returned to the Yin City after so many transfers. Appearing in the Yin City, feeling the unique sunshine and temperature of the Yin City, Gu Shi couldn't help but take a long breath. This feeling is really good. I'm finally back. Sir, when you come out of the portal, can you leave quickly? There are people coming later. Before Gu Shi finished sighing, the staff nearby came over and asked Gu Shi to leave quickly. The news about the new red and blue holy clothes has spread in the past few days, and more people want to come here to try their luck. After all, the appearance of each new red suit represents the rise of a new force. Even if there is no chance to grab the red suit, there is still a chance to grab the right to inherit the order of the red suit. Therefore, during this period, the number of players who rush to Yin City is quite large. Most of the players who have the news came through the portal. They want to seize the opportunity. Of course, if you think you have no chance and just want to come to participate in the red suit exhibition, then there is no need to rush like this. Although the portal is convenient, the price is many times more expensive than the star train. For this reason, those who can come out of the portal are all rich or those who don't care about money. The staff guarding here really can't let one person stay in front of the portal all the time, blocking the way for others to come, right? Although Gu Shi only stood in the field for a few seconds, in the eyes of these staff, this blocked their money-making channel for several hours. Sorry. Gu Shi found that the portal behind him was constantly flashing, and it seemed that a player was coming. So Gu Shi admitted it openly. He walked out while feeling in his pocket. Finally, he felt a pack of cigarettes and stuffed it directly into the staff's hand. I'm sorry for what happened just now. This is just a small gift. Please accept it as a token of your appreciation. The staff was also one of us. No matter how many meanings Gu Shi said, they all sounded the same, but he understood the meaning of each one. He took the pack of cigarettes, and saw that the packaging was a little special. He opened it, and stuffed one into his mouth. No, this is what we should do. It's just that I've been really busy these days. I was a little loud just now. I'm so sorry. Damn, this cigarette is interesting. The staff member lit the cigarette, and found that his body looked like it was on fire. His skin turned red, and even exposed the skeleton under the skin. Seeing the changes in the staff, Gu Shi blinked and looked at the various small commodities that were stuffed into him when he was waiting for someone in Yanjinju. A smile suddenly flashed at his eyes. It seems that he didn't suffer much. Chapter 2335. After receiving Gu Shi's benefits, the staff at the portal also became more enthusiastic. He introduced the changes in Yin City during this period to Gu Shi. Although Gu Shi could go back and ask Gonglingyu about these things, the perspective of Gonglingyu and the perspective of the lower-level staff were different, and the content of the talk was also different. According to the staff, the early appearance of the Azure Holy Clothes this time was because Mr. Feng left and took away 2 red clothes and a large number of people in Yin City. During that period, there were fewer people on the streets of Yin City. It was also for this reason that some wild undead outside the city were attracted to Yin City, because of the increasingly strong Yin energy in Yin City. Sometimes wild undead sneaked into Yin City. This made the necromancers and death knights in the city happy and helpless. What made them happy was that wild undead entered Yin City which gave them experience, didn't it? Whether the necromancer subdued them or the death knight killed them, they all gained. But the helpless thing is that the entry of wild undead into Een City will bring some trouble to Een City. Originally, when residents of Een City went out at night, even if they encountered undead, it would not be a big deal. Now it is different. When going out at night, it is unclear which undead they encounter are cattle and horse undead in the city, and which are wild undead that have just entered. The most speechless thing is that many corpse markets in Een City have been in chaos because of wild undead. You should know that the corpse market in Een City is one of the most critical markets in Een City. In Een City, besides eating and drinking, the most important thing is to make and strengthen the undead. With so many undead wizards gathered together, they can't just kill people in the city if they want to summon souls. They can only rely on various corpses transported back from outside to replenish. If there is a problem with the corpse market, the undead system of the Een City will also have problems. When wild undead enter the Een City, they don't care about the rules of the Een City. They will only absorb Een Chi and rob corpses to strengthen themselves. As a result, once these wild undead came, the corpses could not be saved. Every day, there would always be some wild undead sneaking into the corpse market. Either they would eat and drink in the corpse market, or drag 1 or 2 corpses and run away. This was still considered good. There was another time when I don't know which wild undead organized a large wave. They directly caused the undead disaster in the corpse market. With the method of one person telling 10 people telling 100 people, they almost emptied the corpse market. In order to deal with such things, Enjidu organized several targeted strikes in the later period. But Een City is so big, and the undead don't need any living environment, they can live anywhere. Even if it is a targeted attack, there is no way to deal with the wild undead one by one. And Een City has no city gates, and no one knows how many wild undead sneak in every day. It is also unknown how many wild undead escape. This kind of large-scale encirclement and targeted attack is fine once or twice, but it is not a good thing for a long time. So Een City hopes to find another way to replenish the population lost due to Mr. Feng's migration. However, if you want to increase the population, some ordinary methods are not feasible. After all, everyone who knows about the situation in Een City already knows it. As a university town of the undead system, everyone who can come here to study has come. Those who can't come here are definitely not players of this system, or their strength is not yet reached, or their strength has exceeded the level of studying in Een City. So it doesn't make sense to advertise or not. Een City wants to attract those old players who are willing to sell here, or those cattle and horse players who are willing to come here to work and look for opportunities. If you want to retain these players, you must at least attract them. In the real world, at least on the human side, the most powerful external publicity is nothing better than the Red Clothes exhibition. The staff said confidently. Teacher June made the azure cloth come out in advance for the sake of Een City. You see, this year the news of the azure cloth's birth was announced. There will be a red cloth exhibition next year. The news of Een City will be the headlines for at least 5 years, and these 5 years will be enough for Een City's population to recover to 80% of its original level. Add to that the students who come to study, and there won't be a problem with population. Then these wild undead will have nowhere to hide, and everything will be easily dealt with. Gu Shi was about to nod and say that this staff member was knowledgeable, but unexpectedly, another staff member appeared nearby. He glanced at the staff member who had turned into a flame skeleton, then glanced at Gu Shi and said casually, "What he said is bullshit." At this point, he directly stretched out his hand to the staff member. Gu Shi found this interesting, so when the staff handed out the pack of cigarettes, he casually gave the newcomer a pack of the same cigarettes. Then tell me, what do Teacher June and the others think? There must be something about wild undead. After all, this matter has spread in Een City, but it is different to use red clothes to show the conference. I heard that the person has confirmed the situation directly with Teacher June, and he will always guard Een City as the first guardian of Een City. This time, the Red Clothes Exhibition Conference is just for him to show off his strength. Wild Undead is the best opportunity to show off. That person can just take advantage of the Red Clothes Exhibition Conference to clean up some corners in the city. This is a chance for the new boss to establish his authority. But I heard that Mr. June seems to want this new boss to be in charge of Een City. Where did you get the news? Last time you said you saw a Death Knight who looked very similar to Mr. June. As a result, who would believe you? You are meaningless. Don't hit someone in the face, and don't expose someone's shortcomings. You are the one who is bragging. I am here to introduce the changes in Een City in the past 2 years to this little brother. You are telling lies there, isn't that a lie? Seeing that the two were about to quarrel, Gu Shi didn't say much. He just smiled, then said hello to the two and left. When he walked out, Gu Shi's mind had moved away from this matter. At this time, he had only one goal in mind, which was to go to the University of the Underworld first, find teacher Gong Lingyu first, and get what he wanted to learn first. Chapter 2336. Compared to the turbulent Yin City, the universities in Yin City were not affected much. The presidents of the universities, relying on their own strength and status, kept all the storms out of the school. When returning to the Hades University, Gu Shi found that the students here were not affected by the outside world, and they were still going to school normally. When entering the Hades University, Gu Shi happened to meet the students leaving school. A large number of students squeezed out of the Hades University like a swarm of bees being released. From their high-spirited expressions, it can be seen that they are not affected by the outside world. In their hearts, Hades University is the top university in the Department of the Dead. Walking among these students, Gu Shi felt that he had become much younger. Gu Shi, you are back. I haven't seen you for a long time. I thought you ran away. Just as Gu Shi was heading to Hades University, a voice suddenly called Gu Shi. Without even turning around, Gu Shi knew who called him. In the direction where the sound came from, he felt the opportunity to use the Nether Spirit Flower and the right to inherit the Nether Spirit Flower. This is Gu Shi's second home in the Netherworld University, Tang Shuang. Senior Tang, why are you here? Seeing Tang Shuang, whom he hadn't seen for a long time, Gu Shi was somewhat curious. However, he didn't feel strange at all. He walked up and took Tang Shuang's hand, and walked with him on the main road of the Netherworld University. Tang Shuang also reached out and took Gu Shi's hand, holding it tightly. I was transferred to Hades University, and now I am an assistant teacher in the Dead Water Department of the College of the Five Elements of the Dead at Hades University. Compared to my previous job, I have been promoted several levels. But this is all thanks to you. Tang Shuang talked about his situation during this period. My credit? Yes, your credit. Tang Shuang said while leaning his head on Gu Shi's shoulder. Gu Shi was stunned for a moment, and then reacted. It seems that the appearance of the new red suit has also brought great pressure to Principal Liu. He wants to tie Gu Shi to the Hades University through Tang Shuang. It seems that teacher Gong Lingyu is under a lot of pressure during this period. Gu Shi thought for a while, and said to Tang Shuang, I want to see teacher Gong Lingyu. How about you accompany me, and wait for me outside the teacher's courtyard? After I see the teacher, let's go out to eat something, and have a good rest. Okay, let's go to my house later. I just changed my apartment, and I want to take you to see it. Xiao Xiao also misses you a little. Tang Shuang nodded happily. Gu Shi didn't say much, dragging Tang Shuang towards Gong Lingyu's courtyard. All along the way, Tang Shuang was talking and Gu Shi was listening. Gu Shi noticed at this time that Tang Shuang was quite satisfied with his current life. Usually, she worked as an assistant teacher at Hades University, mainly managing fresh college students and helping professors select some good seedlings from college students. During holidays, she could participate in games and improve her level. The most important thing is that as a teaching assistant, the amount of resources she gets from Hades University every year exceeds the level of graduate students. And there are also various teaching assistant rewards, and the right to let college students help her research topics. It can be said that her life is too comfortable. It's just that there has always been no one to talk to. Now that Gu Shi is back, Tang Shuang has found someone to talk to, and he has never stopped talking all the way. Gu Shi also enjoys this feeling, and the speed of walking towards Gong Lingyu courtyard is getting slower and slower. However, the entire Hades University is only a short distance away, so even if they walk slowly, it is impossible to delay for long. Soon they appeared in front of Gong Lingyu's office courtyard. At this time, there were still many people waiting for Gong Lingyu's reception in the office courtyard, but Gu Shi noticed that the people queuing outside the courtyard now tended to be more college style. The number of administrative or civil servant style players was obviously much less. It seemed that Gong Lingyu was slowly handing over some of his work. At least Gong Lingyu has slowly started to let go of some things about Yin City. Seeing Gu Shi leading Tang Shuang over, several players were stunned for a moment, and then immediately made way. As professors or teachers working in Yin City, most of them have experienced Gong Lingyu's red dress display conference. They also know about Gu Shi's existence. Although Gu Shi has obviously become much more mature in recent years, and the equipment on his body is also obviously different, his appearance has not changed much, and these people recognized Gu Shi's origin at a glance. Seeing them give up their seats, Gu Shi nodded to express his gratitude to them, and then he let go of Tang Shuang's hand and entered Gong Lingyu's courtyard. At this time, Gong Lingyu also knew the news of Gu Shi's arrival. When Gushi was about to enter the courtyard, she actually came out to pick him up in person. Teacher, I'm back. It's good to be back. It seems that your level has improved a lot. Have you mastered all the skills? As soon as Gongling saw Gushi, she looked him up and down and asked about Gushi's situation. I'm still practicing my new skills, and I haven't reached the level to upgrade yet. But I'm facing a few big problems now. If I don't solve them, it may affect my future growth. Gushi was about to talk about what he had encountered, but Gongling asked directly. Is it about the battlefield environment? Ah, not entirely, that's secondary. The main thing is about some problems in the Death City. Gushi talked about the reason why he was in a hurry to come back. The problem of obtaining the Dead City. Gongling didn't have a good solution for this problem. Gushi, you also know that the skill of the Dead City is a rare skill among the 3 dead skills. In addition to being lucky and encountering a Dead City, there are 2 other methods, directly snatching a Dead City from others. All the other methods that can be occupied cannot be regarded as dead cities, but only as satellite cities occupied by us. I can't change this. Hearing this, Gushi's expression was obviously a little disappointed. But Gushi also understood that this was something that could not be changed. If the Death City was not so difficult to obtain, the 3 death skills would not be so important. Although Gongling has so many disciples, their number is not much compared to the students of the Hades University. At this time, Gongling said again, but your situation is not impossible to deal with. From what I heard from you, you want to build a defense circle composed of death cities, right? I have a way here. Chapter 2337. After hearing what Gongling said, Gushi finally breathed a sigh of relief. The teacher is indeed a teacher. He can always give a solution when encountering problems. Gongling didn't delay it this time. She said directly, this is an idea of a certain Ghost Emperor. That Ghost Emperor is also a peculiar thing. When he was level 3, he had all 3 death skills, and when he was level 5, he understood his future path. It can be said that the beginning was smooth. But after that, he never got a new death city. Until he died, the number of death cities in his hands was always 1. When he was at level 45, and his way forward was cut off, and he could not break through the level 45 barrier, he devoted himself to the matter of the death city. He hoped to find a way to mass-produce the death city through some means. But in the end, he still could not get it, and returned to the embrace of death in advance. In the end, he only left a method that was not successful. Most of the Ghost Emperors knew this method, but few people would use it. After all, this method consumes a lot of energy, takes a long time to work, and can only be carried out by 1 person. Normal Ghost Emperors all have several to dozens of dead cities and satellite cities. The Ghost Emperor's situation is unprecedented. So everyone just reads the research of this Ghost Emperor, and does not spread it too much. After all, this thing is not very replicable. But now it seems that the research of this Ghost Emperor is just right for you. Wait for me. Gongling explained to Gushi and asked his men to get the information. Soon, the undead under Gongling took out a not too thick document. Gongling took the document and handed it to Gushi while explaining it to him. That's it. Speaking of which, the Ghost Emperor was a bit tricky. His luck has always been bad, and in the end, he failed to force the Death City. That's why he developed this method. Cut off the mature council hall from his own Death City, use it as a seed, plant it in other cities, and transform this city into a new Death City through the influence of the council hall on the current city. Hearing this, Gushi couldn't help but say something. Isn't this idea good? Why did it fail in the end? The idea is good, but there are several problems that cannot be solved. The first point is that every time the council hall is cut, it is a kind of damage to the Death City itself. No matter how powerful the Death City is, it will lose its potential after being cut several times. And the new Death City transformed by the council hall has various restrictions. First, the attributes of the new city will follow the attributes of the old Death City, which means that the characteristics of the new city cannot be preserved. Another thing is that it will take a long time. It will take at least 10 or 8 years to complete the transformation of the new city. And don't even think about converting several cities at the same time. The Death City Council Hall that has been transformed in this way cannot be operated in the same way again. In other words, you can only cut from the Death City you already control. Want to transform several Death Cities at the same time, then forget it. Another thing is that the upper limit of this kind of Death City has a very special algorithm, which is the upper limit of the original city plus the upper limit of the Death City of the Council Hall divided by 3. In other words, no matter how you look at it, the upper limit of the level of the Death City will be affected. It can be said that unless there is really no other way, No one will take this path. Gu Shi listened to Gong Lingyu's words while flipping through the information in his hand. The content of the information is just as Gong Lingyu said, but the content is more detailed. Gu Shi knew at a glance that this was a loss of the development potential of his own Death City, and a competition for the number of Death Cities. For old players, who can no longer see the way forward, this may be a desperate idea. But for young players like Gu Shi, it is a bit of a waste. From Gong Lingyu's words, it can be heard that Gong Lingyu does not want Gu Shi to take this path. After all, Gu Shi's luck has always been good, so there is no need to rush to seize the Death City. Of course, Gong Lingyu still asked, I see that in your current situation, you should upgrade the level of the Death City and train higher level soldiers. Have you trained the demigod soldiers? Have you started organizing the high-level undead army? Are there not enough resources in the satellite cities? Why do we need so many Death Cities? Gu Shi thought for a moment, and did not intend to tell the situation in the depths of the game, and the problems he encountered in his own city of Aridov. He closed his eyes, and 2 pairs of hands of death appeared behind Gu Shi. Teacher, this is what death gave me when I helped Teacher June get the second red outfit last time. This pair is transformed by the Death Lord skill, and this pair is transformed by the Death Incarnation skill. Next, I need to consume 2 Death Cities, and transform them into a new pair of arms. This can be considered as part of my path to enlightenment. I can't build 2 Death Cities at the critical moment. It's best to deal with this matter in advance. Gong Lingyu still remembered the last time she helped Teacher June fight in the death. But she didn't expect that Gu Shi would reach this step unknowingly. Looking at the 2 pairs of arms floating behind Gu Shi, Gong Lingyu sighed. We have always believed that you will get the second red suit, but we have always thought that you will wait until level 45, and then get the red suit from humans as a reward for discovering the ancient god's corpse. Then you will defend a place for humans. I didn't expect you to have achieved this step. Then your situation is a bit troublesome. The less you pursue luck, the more it will come to you. Don't be anxious now. The more anxious you are, the less you will get what you want. Take this information, but don't act yet. Try to find a solution in the traditional way first. By the way, I introduce you to a few people, they are famous explorers. I have a deep connection with them. I had 2 dead cities before, which they found when they were exploring in the game. Contact them, and ask them to help you find it. Thank you, teacher. It's nothing, you are my disciple, and I should do these things for you. Gong Lingyu said indifferently, but she immediately changed the subject. You have such a serious problem in your growth. Who else will help you if I don't help you?